a statement that will be sought by the Senator for Migori County, Senator Eddie Okech, from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare concerning the position of advisor in the public service. Senator for Busia County will also be seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the implementation of junior secondary school curriculum for children with special needs. You can see the procession of the speakers entered the chamber. And in a minute from now, the Senate will begin its sittings for today. The presiding speaker today is the Speaker of the Senate, Jeff Emerson Kingi. And we'll head over to the proceedings. Welcome and enjoy the proceedings today.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with abundant favor and blessings us, your servants, whom we have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you've committed to our charge. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The quorum bell is being rung for 10 minutes, and this is under Standing Orders number 39 and 40. Under Standing Order 39 of the Senate Standing Orders, the quorum on the quorum of the Senate, the quorum of the Senate or Committee of the Whole shall be 15 senators, and so at the beginning of the session of these sittings, rather, the quorum has to be 15 members. And on the ringing of the bell, under Standing Order 40, that speaks on the quorum at the commencement of a sitting of the Senate. If there is no quorum present when the chair is taken at the time appointed for a sitting of the Senate, the Speaker shall immediately after the prayer order the bell to be rung for 10 minutes. And this is a process that is going on now. The quorum bell is being run for 10 minutes, and if quorum is not achieved within those 10 minutes, still under Standing Order 40, if no quorum is present at the expiration of the 10 minutes, the Speaker may direct that the bell be rung for a further 10 minutes, and if there is no quorum present, then the Speaker shall adjourn the Senate forthwith to the next sitting. And that is a process that is going on now. As we had indicated earlier, one of the key motions that the Senate is expected to consider today is the conferment of our city status to Eldoret Municipal Council. And on the procedural criteria for classifying an area as a city that is provided for under the Urban Areas and the Cities Act, Section 5 provides that subject to subsection 3, an urban area may be classified as a city under this act if the urban area satisfies the following criteria. Among them, has a population of at least 250,000 residents, according to the final gazetted result of the last population census that was carried out by an institution authorized under any written law preceding the application for grant of the city status. B, as an integrated urban area or city development plan in accordance with this act or other existing laws, has demonstrable capacity to generate sufficient revenue to sustain its operation, has demonstrable good system and records prudent management, has the capacity to effectively and efficiently deliver its services to its residents, has institutionalized active public participation by its residents in the management of its affairs, has infrastructural facilities including but not limited to roads, street lighting, markets and fire stations, and an adequate capacity for disaster management, and has capacity for functional, effective waste disposal. On the process for application for conferment of our city status, the same act, that is the Urban Areas and Cities Act, provides under Section 8 that the Board of Municipality may, upon a resolution, apply to the County Executive Committee for consideration for conferment of a city status. And then B, 2 where the Executive Committee approves the application, the County Governor shall constitute an ad hoc committee to consider the recommendation and advise as appropriate. And subsection 3, the ad hoc committee shall comprise of relevant professionals in good standing nominated by the following institutions, taking into account the regional, ethnic, and gender diversity and the representation of persons with disabilities. Among the institutions to be considered are the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, the Kenya Institute of Planners, the Architectural Association of Kenya, the Law Society of Kenya, an Association of Urban Areas and Cities, and the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, and the business community. And where the under committee under subsection 2 above determines that the municipality under review meets the requisite criteria for classification as a city, the county governor shall transmit recommendation to the county assembly for approval. Where the county assembly approves the recommendation for conferment of a city status to municipality, under this section, the clerk of the county assembly shall transmit the resolution to the Senate for consideration. And where the Senate approves the recommendation of the clerk of the Senate shall forward the resolution to the president for conferment of a city status on the municipality. On the classification of urban areas, the criteria for classifying a city are as follows. In classifying an area as a city or municipality, regard shall be had to the ability to provide the following services, and also the existence of the services required to be provided for by the national government. For a city, the services include planning and development control, city economic development plan, traffic control and parking, water and sanitation, street lighting, outdoor advertising, cemeteries and crematoria, public transport, library services, storm drainage, ambulance services, health facilities, firefighting and disaster management, control of drugs, sports and cultural activities, electricity and energy provision, that is gas, kerosene, biomass, etc., abattoirs, refuse collection, solid waste management, pollution, that is air, water and soil control, child care facilities, pre-primary education, local distributor roads, conference facilities, community centers, county hospitals, constituent university campuses, polytechnic, national school, stadium, airport, airstrip, theater, library services, administrative seat, international airport, financial hub, museum, historical monument, fire station, emergency preparedness, postal services, funeral parlor, recreation parks, management of markets, animal control and welfare, religious institution, organized public transport, information, communication and technology services, and telecommunication services. And those are now the requirements that the municipal city, the municipality of Eldoret rather has met. And that is why now the Senate is expected to today vote on whether to consider that report of the Standing Committee on Devolution, or whether to award the Municipal Council of Eldoret that city status. still on the order paper, on the statement, there is a statement that will be sought by the Senator for Machakos County, Senator Agnes Kavindu. She will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation and Housing regarding the expansion of roads in Machakos County. And there is also a statement that will be sought by the Senator for Kisumu County, Professor Tom Ojienda, from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries regarding the provision of agricultural extension services in Kisumu County. Nominated Senator Haminda Kibwana will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Information, Communication and Technology concerning the state of digital infrastructure in this public service. The Senator for Marsabit County is expected to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the handover of machinery, motor vehicles, and unfinished projects from the Nairobi Metropolitan Services NMS to the Nairobi City County Government. The Senator for Marsabit is also seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources concerning the alleged grabbing of public land in Marsabit County. And then the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing will make a statement on the progress made on the consideration of the following 6 statements. That is a statement by Senator Crystal Asige regarding retesting of public service vehicles upon expiry of their driving licenses. A statement sought by Senator Joseph Kamau regarding construction status of the road connecting Lake Kenyatta Primary School to Uziwa Junction in Lamu County. A statement sought by Senator Kaduri Morongi, who is also the Senate Deputy Speaker, on the progress of evaluation of tenders and commencement of drilling of works in Meru Town roads. The quorum bell has stopped ringing. The quorum has been achieved. We hand you over to the plenary.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, kindly hasten to take your seats. I've got some communication to make. Honorable Senators, I'd like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation of members of staff from various counties undertaking the County Assembly's legislation tracker training. Honorable Senators, the County Assembly's legislation tracker is a platform where information on legislation passed or being considered by the County Assemblies is uploaded. The platform will also provide a centralized online space where members of the public and relevant stakeholders may access bills, legislation being processed by specific county assemblies, and to promote openness, transparency, and public involvement in the legislative process as required under Article 196 of the Constitution. It is envisaged that the Senate will utilize the system in accessing first-hand and synthesized information on bills and acts passed by county assemblies in undertaking its oversight and legislative mandates. It is for this reason, Honorable Senators, that the Senate, with the support from the Westminster Foundation of Democracy, engaged a consultant to develop an online legislative database that will bridge that gap. I request each member of staff represented to stand when the county is called out. Nakuru County. Narok County. Kajiado County. Machakos County. Makueni County. Kiambu County. Kakamega County. Vihiga County, Bungoma County, Busia County, Siaya County, Kisumu County, Homa Bay County, Migori County, Kisii County, Nyamira County, Wajir County, Samburu County, Embu County, Kitui County, Mandera County, Isiolo County, and Kwale County. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate, and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Also, Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, students from Starehe Boys Center, who are undertaking a 3-week voluntary service scheme in the Senate. I request the students to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. Roy Victor Tanu, Yasir Adam, Hawkins Juma, Jared Osira, Moses Ekutan, Emmanuel Amhaya. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate, and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow the Senator for Nairobi under 1 minute to extend words of welcome to the delegation from Starehe Boys Center, and also call upon the Senator Boni, Senator for Kakamega, to also under 1 minute to extend words of welcome to welcome the delegation drawn from the various counties in that particular order.
I thank you most sincerely, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to welcome the students from Starehe Boys Center in Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, I don't think Starehe Boys Center needs introduction. It is an institution that is well known across the country for excellence in academics and other areas for a very long time. And we're hoping that although the delegation is small, those who have gotten an opportunity to visit the Senate today will have an opportunity to interact with the Houses of Parliament, and just to encourage them to put all effort in their studies and to ensure that they give it their very best. And really, if you are in Starehe, I think the path for you is laid out, because it's an institution that guarantees that in your formative years, you will have a solid base on which to build. I have a few friends that I know from Starehe. The Member of Parliament for Saboti, he's in the National Assembly, Honorable Caleb Amisi. He's very proud of his school. Even those of us who went to schools like Musingu, my brother here, Senator Khalwale, are a bit envious, if we are being honest, of those who went to schools such as Starehe. Because as they say, those who went to provincial schools are those who failed to go to Starehe, like myself. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of this delegation, and I wish them a fruitful visit. And when they go back, I want them to say hi to the director, Mr. Mwaura, who is a good friend. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for inviting me to welcome the members of staff from the 47 counties. I just want to tell them one thing. Internationally, what is now in vogue is something called open government. In fact, last month, I was in a global summit on open government. And this is based on the fact that leaders in parliaments of the world must never hide from the public what it is that they are doing. And for this to be done, we rely on members of staff. So I would like to encourage them that you do quality work in your offices, and more importantly, Mr. Speaker, they should go back home knowing that under the Constitution of Kenya, there is no information that is supposed to be shielded from the public. We have problems in various counties. Members of staff, you have seen what is happening in Kisii. Big problems. You have seen what is happening in Meru. Big problems. This is because the partnership of open government is not working in those two particular counties. If it was, probably the governors have a case, but nobody knows what they have been doing. Probably the MCAs have a case. So support them for them to be able to make the running of governments in county assemblies open, welcome, and anytime my office is next to the stairs, you can come for a cup of tea and the other things beyond 5. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order, clerk.
Order number 3, messages.
Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 46.3 and 4, I received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage by the National Assembly of the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bills number 55 of 2022. The message, which is dated Thursday, 26th October 2023, was received on Tuesday, 31st of October 2023, in the office of the Clerk of the Senate. Now, pursuant to the said standing order, I now proceed to report the message. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 41.1 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bills number 55 of 2022, was published via Kenya Gazette Supplement number 185 on 15th November 2022 as a bill seeking to provide a comprehensive legislative framework for imposition of property rates on land and buildings by county governments, the valuation of rateable property, the appointment and powers of property valuers, and the establishment, powers, and functions of the National Rating Tribunal. And whereas on Wednesday, 11th October 2023, the National Assembly considered and passed the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bills number 55 of 2022, with amendments and in the form attached herewith. Now, therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Orders 41.1 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby refer the bill to the Senate for consideration. Now, Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 163, which requires that a bill which originates in the National Assembly be proceeded with by the Senate in the same manner as a bill introduced in the Senate by way of first reading in accordance with Standing Order number 144, I direct that the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bills number 55 of 2022 be listed in tomorrow's order paper for purposes of the bill being read a first time. I thank you. Next order, clerk.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
The Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of this Senate today, the 1st of November, the year of our Lord 2023, being, Mr. Speaker, 1, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Katundu Level 5 Hospital, County Government of Kiambu for the year ended 30th of June 2022. 2, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Kiambu Level 5 Hospital, County Government of Kiambu for the year ended 30th of June 2022. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Lari Level 4 Hospital, County Government of Kiambu for the year ended 30th of June 2022. And 4, Mr. Speaker, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Kihara Level 5 Hospital, County Government of Kiambu for the year ended 30th of June 2022. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Tigoni Level 4 Hospital, County Government of Kiambu for the year ended 30th of June 2022. And Mr. Speaker, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Ruiru Level 4 Hospital, County Government of Kiambu for the year ended 30th of June 2022. And Mr. Speaker, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Egenia Level 4 Hospital, the County Government of Kiambu for the year ended 2022, June 30th. And report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Kigumo Level 4 Hospital, County Government of Kiambu for the year ended 30th of June 2022, and report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Naduna Level 4 Hospital, County Government of Kiambu for the year ended 30th of June. And Mr. Speaker, sir, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Ahero County Level 4 Hospital, County Government of Kisumu on the year ended 30th of June 2022, and the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Jaramogi Oginga Oginga Teaching and Referral Hospital, County Government of Kisumu for the year ended 30th of June 2022. Speaker, sir, final 53. Kakamega staff. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a breakdown of the workforce within Kakamega County government, specifying the number of employees on permanent and those on casual basis. 2, clarify the duration casual employees have been working on a temporary basis, noting that some of these casuals in Kakamega health facilities have worked there since, Mr. Speaker, the year 2015 as casuals. Furthermore, state whether the county government plans to employ them on permanent and punishable basis. 3, disclose the elapsed time since the last salary disbursement for both permanent and casual employees was made, along with corresponding amounts allocated for salaries in each category. And finally, explain the reasons behind the delay in salary payments to the county government workers of Kakamega, considering, Mr. Speaker, sir, that there are no outstanding financial obligations from the national government in terms of shareable revenue, conditional and additional allocations that have been paid up to date to the government of Kakamega. Mr. Speaker, sir, the next statement is under the same order to the Committee of Finance and Budget regarding revenue generation and how it is put to use by the county government of Kakamega. In the statement, the committee should, Mr. Speaker, 1, establish the amount of money the county government of Kakamega raised as its own source revenue in the financial years 2021-2022 and 2022-2023. 2, state how much the said county government has projected to be raised this financial year 2023-2024 as its own source revenue, and shed light on the main sources of this type of revenue in the county government of Kakamega. And finally, outline any plans the county government has submitted to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning here in Nairobi on how to grow this revenue. Mr. Speaker, sir, finally, I rise to seek for a statement from the Finance Committee and Budget regarding the rental fees incurred by the county government of Kakamega. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, 1, they should provide a detailed breakdown of annual rental fees for office space and utility spaces incurred by the county government of Kakamega, disclosing details of the respective contracts, including the names of the landlords. And 2, Mr. Speaker, outline measures that the county government of Kakamega has put in place to ensure that this is managed and so as to reduce the loss of funds through rental costs. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. Request for statement on the expansion of roads in Machakos County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee of Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the expansion of roads in Machakos County. In the statement, the committee should provide the timelines for the expansion of Tala, Katine Siandhi, Tala, Oldonyo Sabuk, Tala, Kinyui, Miseleni, Kaba, Tala, Kamulu, Kangundo Mwala, Matu Ekalakala, and Ngonda Ndunduni Katulye roads, stating the anticipated commencement and completion dates, and state the costs of each of the projects and the contractors who have been awarded the tenders and to implement the projects. Senator Kavindu, MP, Senator Machakos County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddie Okech. That statement is dropped. Senator Okoit Omtata. Senator, you have 3 statements.
Yes.
You can take them at a go.
Most obliged. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding bailouts and debt waivers by government to various entities, including parastatals and other sagas, cooperative societies, companies, and the like. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a comprehensive report on all debt waivers and bailouts by government to those entities since the coming into effect of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, explaining the criteria used and clarifying whether each debt waiver and bailout conformed to the principles of public finance as stipulated in Article 201 of the Constitution. 2, explain the collective impact of the debt waivers and bailouts on the public debt portfolio. 3, outline actions taken by the government to hold to account individuals responsible for the mismanagement of the affected entities and mismanagement of the affected entities that necessitated the debt waivers and bailouts, stating whether they addressed the loss as envisioned by Article 226, Clause 5 of the Constitution. Explain the specific measures the government has put in place to promote good financial management practices within public entities and those other entities that were bailed out. And finally, recommend the best practices the government can apply in assessing whether to grant debt waivers and bailouts to public entities and others. Mr. Speaker, sir, my second statement, I rise pursuant to a Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the implementation of junior secondary school curriculum for children with special needs. In the statement, the committee should address the following: explain the criteria used for admitting children with special needs into junior secondary schools, providing details of the children with the special needs who sat for the Kenya Intermediate Level Education Assessment, KILEA, and the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, KEPSEA. State the number of teachers who were trained and employed specifically for the children with special needs in junior secondary school countrywide. Provide a report of the learning resources, including electronic and non-electronic teaching and learning materials, such as textbooks, that were evaluated, vetted, and approved for use by learners with special needs, as well as the programs and curriculum support materials developed and reviewed to meet the standards of children with special needs. And finally, number 4, outline any other measures put in place by the ministry to ensure learners with special needs are facilitated to attend junior secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, sir, my final statement, third and final, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the full implementation of the Basic Education Curriculum Framework, BECF. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state the level of operationalization of the Education Quality Assurance and Standards Council, ESQAC, as provided for in the Basic Education Act, detailing its current standing and staffing and financing levels. And 2, state strategies in place to fully operationalize and strengthen the Board of Management, BOM, of the Council and extend its tenure to a period of 5 years. Mr. Speaker, sir, those are my 3 statements. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Professor Tom Ojenda. Those are 3 statements. Those statements are dropped. Senator Hamida Kibwana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek a statement on the state of digital infrastructure in the public service. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Information and Communication Technology regarding the state of digital infrastructure in the public service. In the statement, the committee should provide an assessment of the current state of digital infrastructure within the public service encompassing both hardware, like servers, computers, and networking equipment, and software, applications, platforms, and digital services offered to the public. Number 2, outline any existing plans or strategies aimed at bolstering Kenya's digital infrastructure, especially in areas that lag behind, with a view to ensuring accessibility, efficiency, and transparency in public service delivery as envisioned by Article 43 of the Constitution. Number 3, highlight any challenges faced in the digitalization of public services and the measures in place to address these hurdles. And finally, elaborate on any insights on partnerships with the private sector and international organizations on enhancing the country's digital capabilities. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mohammed Chute. Senator Bass, you're holding brief for Senator Chute?
Yes.
Proceed.
There are 3?
There are 3
yes.
statements.
There are 3, yes. Honorable Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement for the Standing Committee of Land, Environment and Natural Resources on the alleged grabbing of public land in Marsabit Town, Saku constituency, and the Hari Thuku forest in Marsabit. In the statement, the committee should provide the total acreage of public land in Marsabit, specifying the location and size of each parcel of land. 2, investigate the allegations of unauthorized occupation, encroachments, and land grabbing in Marsabit County, particularly in Marsabit Town, Saku constituency, and Harithuku forest, disclosing the individual or entities responsible and any legal actions are taken against them. 3, outline any long-term strategies and policies in place to safeguard public land from illegal encroachment and land grabbing. Honorable Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement for the Standing Committee on Road, Transport and Housing regarding the status of construction of Leisemes Sirma Road in Marsabit County. In the statement, the committee should provide an update on the status of construction of the Leisemes Sarima Road in Marsabit County, giving reasons for the stalling of the project. 2, inform the Senate of the tendering process for the project, providing details on the bids received to the contractor who won the award and the bid amount, explain any disparities between the contractual and actual commencement and completion dates of the project. 4, outline any measures put in place to ensure the completion of the project without further delay, stating the project timelines. Finally, Honourable Speaker, the third statement, I rise pursuant to standing order to seek statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the handover of machineries, motor vehicles, and unfinished projects from Nairobi Metropolitan Service to the County Government of Nairobi. In the statement, the committee should provide a comprehensive list of machineries and motor vehicles purchased during the tenure of the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, detailing their mechanical state, whether they were handed over to the county government of Nairobi City. 2, provide an update on the status of the completion of all unfinished projects initiated by NMS and handed over to the county, explaining any disparity between the contractual and actual commencement and completion dates. 3, outline any measures put in place to ensure the completion of the project without any delay, stating the project timelines. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Senator of Marsabit, I beg to present. Thank you.
Senator Maruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to request a statement on the death of Mr. Samuel MATIANG'I, allegedly through medical negligence at Moi Hospital in Voi, Taita Taveta County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding the death allegedly through medical negligence of Master Samuel MATIANG'I at Moi Hospital in Voi, Taita Taveta County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, outline the circumstances that led to the death of Master Samuel MATIANG'I at the Moi Hospital in Voi. 2, provide an update on the current status of the availability of oxygen, including any reserves in hospitals within Taita Taveta County. 3, explain the status of the intensive care units in hospitals in Taita Taveta County with detailed reference to the quality, suitability, viability, and operational status of all machines, including the CT scan machines, highlighting the procurement process for the machines and the staff operating them. And 4, investigate allegations that led to the demise of Master Samuel MATIANG'I. Sorry, I'll go through that again. Investigate allegations that the demise of Master Samuel MATIANG'I may have been as a result of negligence on the part of the medical staff at Moi Hospital, outlining any measures to be undertaken by both the county and national governments against any officers who may be found culpable. I have another statement, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to standing order, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations concerning the procedure for acquisition of citizenship for foreign persons married to Kenyans. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain the reasons for non-compliance with Article 15.1 as read together with Article 13.2 of the Constitution with regards to acquisition of citizenship status by persons married to Kenyan citizens. 2, state any progress made by the ministry in ensuring that women married to locals in Taita Taveta County who are mostly from Tanzania are granted citizenship status upon verification of their marital documents in order to enable them access essential government services. And 3, elucidate on the possibility of decentralizing this service to the county or sub-county level with view to making it more accessible to the citizenry. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Statements pursuant to Standing Order 56-1. The Chairperson Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing. Senator Faki, you're not in that committee? So that statement is deferred. Senator Faki, proceed to make your request.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request for statement on the safety of motorists and pedestrians along the Makupa Causeway Bridge. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the safety of motorists and pedestrians along the Makupa Causeway Bridge and Changamwe roads in Mombasa County. In the statement, the committee should state any plans by the ministry to ensure that the construction of adequate drainage facilities, street lighting, and clear road markings along the Makupa Causeway Bridge and Changamwe roads to ensure the safety of both motorists and pedestrians. Number 2, outline measures being taken by the ministry to mitigate the risks faced by motorists and other road users approaching the causeway from Changamwe direction and joining the highway alongside traffic from Mikindani, especially in the absence of proper joining lane. And number 3, state when the ministry intends to address the matter of absence of street lighting or non-functional street lights along the Bonje Dongokundu Road in order to alleviate risks faced by motorists and pedestrians along the Bonje Portrees area. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Now, honorable senators, I will allow intervention on all these statements for a period of 15 minutes. The Honorable Chiranke.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I want to congratulate colleagues who have brought statements, and in quick succession, I want to support the statement by Senator Karen Nyamu on the death, alleged death of Master Adas Kanyora Mutai. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask Ministry of Education and DCI to fast track, because, Mr. Speaker, we have noticed in the recent months we have lost many children in unexplained deaths, especially in our schools within the city and across the country. We have had even, Mr. Speaker, in some estates in this country, and even in schools that have buildings that are high-rise, where they don't have any protective stairs, Mr. Speaker, and sometimes they slide and get injured. But on this, Mr. Speaker, the allegations we are hearing is that the teacher meted out corporal punishment and went ahead and pushed the young man into the swimming pool, and the parents and many people were not informed. Mr. Speaker, the head teacher has continued to shield the said teacher. We want to call the DCI, the Inspector General of Police, and relevant agencies, Mr. Speaker, to move with speed. And finally, this school has been accused before of levying illegal fees and charges that is against the circular by Ministry of Education, and also bringing what we call religious discrimination, Mr. Speaker. We cannot allow the issue of religious discrimination in the schools have been dealt before by the courts of law. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the PS in charge of education and the Ministry of Education to move with speed, Mr. Speaker, and ensure that this issue is resolved. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on the bailouts, I want to agree with Senator Okia Okoitio Mtata Andrew for bringing this issue of bailout, Mr. Speaker. The other day I was shocked by the CEO of KQ, Mr. Kilafuka, when he appeared before our counterpart, the junior or the lower house of National Assembly, he said by 2024, we would have bailed out 212 billion by KQ, Mr. Speaker. If it was a private sector CEO admitting that they need 212 billion, Mr. Speaker, out of loss, that is an adverse opinion by the Auditor General. That person should have been out of office, Mr. Speaker, and therefore I agree with them, because why would we bail out SACCAs and other institutions like KQ where they don't give even mshwari in their air tickets, or even give complimentary tickets, Mr. Speaker, and they have one of the expensive air tickets to travel across the country, Mr. Speaker. So I think, Mr. Speaker, we must be deliberate. Let the Kenyan money be used for the benefit of Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. We don't need to bail out any institution. If that institution is underperforming, let it be, Mr. Speaker, let it allow to go under, and maybe to be given other options, Mr. Speaker. But what is happening in KQ is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, but we must bring changes. I remember there was an aviation bill, Mr. Speaker, in the last session. We must look at possibility of nationalizing Kenya Airways or KQ to ensure we turn it around to profitability and be able to fight state capture among public institutions. So I want to thank Senator Okia Omtata, Mr. Speaker, and commend all colleagues that have contributed today, Mr. Speaker, and say I support all the statements. I thank you.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to comment on these statements. I want to concentrate on the one of Senator Amida, and I think it's carefully thought. Recently, Mr. Speaker, the minister in charge of ICT has gone around the counties, launching spots where young people could access ICT. Unfortunately, for the ones in Kitui, Makueni, and Machakos, as soon as he left, or a day or two, then the same will go off. And you were wondering what was the best practices not employed into this. Mr. Speaker, in the modern day technology and the expectation of the young people, we want to have ICT which is working in the country, and the network which is available, so that people can access the internet, they can Google, they can get information, they can apply for jobs. But Mr. Speaker, when a whole minister, our cabinet secretary, and the ministry, and all the technocrats goes and does this all over Kenya, and then within a few days it has hitches, Mr. Speaker, something has to be done so that the promise becomes true, and the young people have a lot of expectation from the government on this, so that the internet has made the world a global village. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support, and also support all the statements, and thank the members who have taken their time and effort to develop these statements. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Halwale. Oni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the statement by Senator Kibwana about digital infrastructure is futuristic and also current, and we need to reflect on it. I support it, and also would like the committee to further find out what the ministry is doing in terms of digital sports, also known as e-sports. If you go to children from middle class and upper class, they enjoy digital sports. For example, in football, you'll find children, he sets up, the computer is Arsenal, and the child is Manchester United. So the child plays the game and defeats Chelsea. And therefore, if he is a supporter of Man U, the confidence of that child goes up if in the previous day Man U was defeated. It is so important. When I see children doing these things, I say, hey, what the Minister of ID is doing is so critical, but if we don't avail these things to the other children, we are starting to create a society that has got class that can clash, either at the mental level or going forward. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to report to the House that further to what she's doing, I'm developing a brisk e-sport of bullfighting, so the children who don't come from Kakamega can also enjoy bullfighting when they are in Msambweni, when they are, of course, not in Nandi. In Nandi, the moment they will see, they'll start having ideas of stealing the bulls. And
Senator Bonnet, that was extremely uncalled for. Proceed with the droid. Don't just take your seat. Withdraw that last statement.
Mr. Speaker, I want to withdraw. What I meant by slip of the tongue, I said the senator of Nandi. It is him who has got the ideations of cattle rustling, not the children, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Bonnet, are you trying to imply that the Senator for Randi, the Honorable Chiranke, is a cattle rustler?
Mr. Speaker, last week, Mr. Speaker, I know he's not, but last week he almost
Then
killed
proceed to... You need to proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with that particular remark, I want to congratulate the senator. This is very nice.
Senator Bonnet,
And
can
I
you
wish,
withdraw that statement?
and I wish to confirm that this was with a light touch, and it is allowed. It is with a light touch. It is allowed in speechcraft, and I want to withdraw and apologize if it meant anything else other than light touch.
Thank you. Senator Beatrice Akenyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to support the statement one by the Senator, my senior sister, Senator Agnes Kavindu, on the expansion of roads in Machakos County. A number of roads has been listed, but Honorable Speaker, for good planning in most of urban centers, we want to support that not only in Machakos County, all the other counties must work towards the expansion of their roads. Because, Honorable Speaker, as the populations expand and increase, there's need for more of access roads in the counties and in all the urban centers. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support that statement. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, I want to support the statement by Senator Boni Alwale regarding revenue generation and usage by Kakamega County. And Honorable Speaker, it is not only limited to Kakamega County, but there must be intense attention that is given to revenue generation, because as the counties grow, Honorable Speaker, we need more of the services that the citizens require, and this can only be possible if revenue is generated, and after the generation, Honorable Speaker, that revenue must be used according to plan and efficiently and effectively. And Honorable Speaker, I want to lastly support the statement by Senator Omtata on the implementation of the junior secondary school curriculum, especially for children with special needs. But Honorable Speaker, this must be expanded to include all students that we have across the country in all our schools. Honorable Speaker, it is not worth noticing that junior secondary school has had a number of challenges in most of our schools. Mr. Speaker, sir, in a school that is close by in my ward, we have a class of GSS that has over 70 students, but Honorable Speaker, throughout the year, they have only had 2 teachers. One that teaches mathematics and another that teaches music. So it means, Honorable Speaker, that these students have gone throughout the year without attention in most of the other subjects. Honorable Speaker, we all know that at the secondary level, the training of teachers is designed in a way that teachers are prepared and trained to handle 2 subjects. So it means if the students have 14 subjects and there are only 2 teachers, then Honorable Speaker, it means that the students have gone throughout the year without attention of over 8 subjects. So there must be a relook into teacher preparations and teacher posting effectively and efficiently, and the infrastructure that is needed. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Senator Mutinda, Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I do rise to support all my colleagues' statements that they have put across. And I will narrow, starting with the Senate, the statement from Senator from Machakos, Senator Kavindo, in regards to the roads in, expansion. Issues of infrastructure are very important because then they enhance the growth of the particular areas, business-wise, and properties are also able to add more value. An area that is the eastern region of Machakos, it's very important because it's very adjacent to Nairobi County. And most of our people now are moving to Machakos County and doing the investment. The best that you can do is to ensure that more infrastructures are put in place to enhance mobility, easy transportation. Then this reduces the lead time for the business people. It's very important. I want to also support the statement by Senator Boni Halwale, the issues of the on-source revenue for Kakamega County. As the Vice Chair of Finance Budget, and I'm happy that this statement will be coming to our committee, this is a matter that as Senate we've really pushed and focused that the 47 counties should ensure that they increase their on-source revenue. There's a high dependency from the national government on the allocation and issues in terms of untimely disbursements then that are brought about. But we've always then asked, then how much are the governors, are the counties collecting so that they can be able to manage their recurrent expenditure throughout without really putting so much pressure on the national government, and then they are not putting pressures on themselves. We've seen also, we've had cases of loopholes of money not being fully remitted, that is collected, but when these measures are put and focused on, then we will ensure as Senate that there's much more increase in the on-source revenue. Hence, people then are able to get the services that they deserve because you realize different counties are also charging their own taxes. Lastly, allow me, Mr. Speaker, to support the statement by Senator Hamida. I support it from the perspective that as the ambassador of digital literacy in this country, and an advocate for matters digital literacy, it is very important that the digital infrastructure, especially in the public sector, in the public service, in regards to the hardware sector area, in regards to the software factor, it's very key that the Ministry of Communication and Technology should be able to put out and indicate at what level is it at, what kind of networks are in place. I note because as Kenya Kwanza government, our biggest focus is to ensure we go digital. Rwanda has done it, and we are still focusing on that. When we came into government 1 year ago, the services were at about 320 e-services. As we speak, there are over 15,000 services. The target is over 50,000 services. But for these e-services to be able to blossom and achieve what is needed to be achieved, then it is important to know the level of digital infrastructure that we have. Digital literacy, the skills that are needed is a very important aspect because public servants should be equipped with the digital literacy that is needed so that they can be able to ensure that services are easily delivered, and we minimize the time that one needs to move from one place to another because you can sit back and be able to get the e-government services that are in place. I also want to note the smart farming, the e-farming that the President is also focusing on through the digital focus. The other day, we were able also to pass the Universal Health Care Bill, which has also the Digital Health Bill, which is a very key and bill that is going to ensure then that we reduce the paperwork in hospitals and ensure that we have these systems, not short-term and long-term. Data security is also a very important factor, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, I support.
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia taarifa ya maombi ya taarifa kutoka kwa Senator Mtata kuhusiana na kudhaminiwa kwa baadhi ya mashirika ya umma na serikali kuu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni masikitiko kwamba baadhi ya mashirika yanaendelea kupata hasara, na hasara hii inabebwa na wananchi wa kawaida ambao wanalipa kodi kuisaidia serikali. Mheshimiwa Spika, hususan shirika la Kenya Airways ambalo kwa muda mrefu limeweza kutegemea serikali kuliweka hai. Majuzi mkurugenzi mkuu wa shirika hilo amesema kwamba kwa mwaka huu watapata hasara ya bilioni 35 na wametoa mapendekezo kwa mwakani watapata hasara ya bilioni 65 Kenya shillings, shilingi za Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika hizi dhamana ambazo serikali inalipa kwa niaba ya mashirika haya, hatuoni wale wawekezaji wa kibinafsi ambao wana hisa katika mashirika haya kutoa mchango wao katika dhamana hiyo ama malipo hayo ambayo serikali inapeana. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia kama shirika la Kenya Airways wanapolipisha tikiti zao za ndege, Mheshimiwa Spika, utapata kwamba ni dhulma kubwa wanafanyia wateja na wananchi wa Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikisafiri baina ya Mombasa na Nairobi, waweza kupata asubuhi tikiti ni shilingi 9,000, lakini ikifika saa 5 tikiti ile imefika shilingi 18,000. Inapanda marudufu kila baada ya masaa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Wakati mwisho wa mwaka shirika hili, Mheshimiwa Spika, linaregesha hasara, na hasara ile inadhaminiwa na serikali. Shirika jingine, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni Kenya Power. Ikipungua ukisipolipa malipo yako kwa muda wa siku moja, Mheshimiwa Spika, umeme unakatiwa. Lakini shirika lile mwisho wa mwaka linakuja tena kwa serikali kupata ruzuku ili kujisaidia kulipa madeni yake na mambo kama hayo. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni lazima mashirika haya yawajibike, kwa sababu ile kodi ambayo inalipwa na mwananchi wa Kenya, Mheshimiwa, ni dhulma kwamba inalipwa mashirika ambayo nusu ya hisa zinamilikiwa na wenye hisa binafsi. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to comment on some of the statements. Number one, Honorable Speaker, is the statement by Senator Mita on digital space. Honorable Speaker, I'm a member of the ICT committee, 9 of us, and I know Kenya Kwanza government promised Kenyans that they want to have free 25,000 Wi-Fi spots across the country. And while, Honorable Speaker, we were in Turkana for Senate Mashinane, we launched 2 of those free spots at the livestock market and fresh produce market in Turkana, Honorable Speaker. It's unfortunate that some of the areas, some of the senators have said some of the spots are not working, and as a committee, we will take it up with the ministry to ensure that all the areas where they have installed, they ensure they put proper quality equipment so that, you know, Kenyans can enjoy it. Because the reason why these things have been put across the country is to ensure our youth access free internet, free Wi-Fi, to access digital jobs. The president is passionate about digital jobs for our youth, so that the youth, we are talking about unemployment, they can generate their own jobs, they can generate content and employ themselves and earn a living. They can even get digital jobs across out of the country by working at the comfort of those areas where we have free Wi-Fi, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the statement by Honorable Mtata on grants and payouts, I know for long the country has given out grants maybe to sugar industry, dairy, and agriculture, and even KQ. KQ is notorious. We pump in close to 20 billion every year, and this KQ looks like it's not going to survive. I think the best thing to do is for the government to take KQ over, put in money through the exchequer, and run properly, like the way the Ethiopian airline is doing very well. They are buying aeroplanes every year, but KQ continue to lease expensive aeroplanes. So we support that, you know, this bailout, let KQ either collapse or the government takes it up. United Arab Emirates, they have Emirates airline, and it's doing well. They get new airlines every year. So why can't we do the same for our country? I know some of us in the past, we bought shares when they floated shares for KQ, but it looks like the people who have been put there, their issue is just to eat. It's like a corrupt entity, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the last one on revenue generation, on say, revenue in Kakamega County and across also all the other counties, it looks like, Honorable Speaker, when this thing of share of revenue and the counties are assured of the particular billions that they get from the national government, some of them went on and slept on the job. I think the best thing to do for CRA is to set up one of the parameters is to have an incentive. If you meet your target, you are given additional resources by the national government. And those who don't meet their target, you deny them a certain percentage. I think it is something that this House needs to think and plan about so that our governors, our county governments should be able to generate enough revenue at the counties. Honorable Speaker, before devolution, Nairobi County used to sustain itself. Today, really need money from a national government. They can generate 100 billion, but because of what they get, they have gone to sleep on the job. And if they collect also, maybe the money is diverted elsewhere. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, I know yesterday my sister, the Honorable Senator Karen Nyamu, said she would not support anything that I supported or proposed. I want to confirm to this House that I do not share the same feelings and that I stand solidly behind her and any agenda that is going to advance the best interests of the people of Nairobi. So I stand here to support the statement that she has brought regarding the death at a school here in Nairobi, Kimathi Primary School. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the people of Nairobi, the parents of Kimathi Primary, that I have seen the work that has been done by committees of this House, that indeed there is no need for us to speculate at this particular moment as to the events that led to the death of the student at that particular school. I have extreme faith in the committees of this House to be able to unearth the sequence of events and the root cause of the death of that child, Mr. Speaker. So I only urge that there is patience. I am sure the committees will be able to call the families, the teachers, the PTA, representatives of the school to come here to the Senate to give an account of what happened, and I'm sure that in the end, justice shall be served. Mr. Speaker, I also want to support the statement by Senator Hamida. Many of us are a bit concerned about the state of the digital infrastructure in government. Mr. Speaker, a few months ago, I was invited...
Order, Senator Manzo and the youth leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a few months ago, I was invited by the CS for ICT, the Honorable Eliud Owalo, to accompany him to a launch of what I expected would be something quite serious at City Market here in Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, I must say that I was a bit disappointed because when we got there, it was nothing more than the launch of a Wi-Fi hotspot for the traders there at the City Market. And unfortunately for me, is that few weeks later, Mr. Speaker, I was receiving calls from the traders at City Market that in fact the internet there was not working anymore. And this is the story of many of these public Wi-Fi hotspots that we have seen the ICT minister launching. So I would be expecting the committee to summon the cabinet secretary and tell us really if this is just a charade or if indeed the government is serious about providing internet for hustlers in markets such as City Market. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Veronica.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. And I rise to support the statements that have been brought by our colleagues to the floor of this House. And Mr. Speaker, I'm specifically looking at the statement on the state of digital infrastructure in the public service. As Mr. Speaker, this will be a foundation for growth in many sectors, knowing very well that information and communication technology is an enabler for development, Mr. Speaker. One of the key covenants and the promises that the Kenya Kwanza government has given to the public in Kenya is that this government is the one government that you go on record as having offered a digital superhighway to the citizens of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, because the future is in digital, the future is in the ICT advancement, Mr. Speaker. And for us to be able to achieve even the smart cities, we must have this infrastructure in place. So this is a good starting point from Senate. This statement going to the relevant committee then gives an opportunity to the committee to be able to receive an audit of the infrastructure that has been laid out to serve the public, Mr. Speaker. I see, Mr. Speaker, this kind of audit and review of the infrastructure being offered in the ICT sector to the public being a good thing, because it will give an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, for smart cities to be established in Kenya, and beyond the smart cities, for efficient service to be given by government, Mr. Speaker. And when we are talking about efficient service, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking at the digitalization of public services, Mr. Speaker. One of the ways to eliminate corruption completely from public offices is to ensure any service that can be given online should be offered to the public online without an interface of the human aspect, so that some of the issues that Kenyans have been complaining about can be eliminated through the use of technology, Mr. Speaker. Records can be preserved for years without having to deal with the manual records, and there are many, many benefits, Mr. Speaker. The Senator for Nairobi has walked out, and it is good he experienced the offering of services, smart digital services to a market in Nairobi City Market. It's unfortunate that traders called saying that the Wi-Fi was not working, or there was no, I don't know whether it was data which was not available. But as a leader, a good leader, he could have offered a solution. If the problem was data, he could have boosted government efforts, Mr. Speaker, from the opposition to ensure that since the infrastructure was offered, he could do the little that he could to give the data to those traders who voted him into office, Mr. Speaker. I've also seen the statement by the senator, the good senator from Kakamega County, about their own source revenue. Mr. Speaker, if the counties were to take such statements seriously, Mr. Speaker, we would find counties are now able to generate their own income. We have had an over-concentration by the counties of where they want to just expend money and from other sources, and especially from national government, Mr. Speaker. This approach should be adjusted, Mr. Speaker, using their own source revenue. We would expect as Kenyans that counties are innovative in the way they raise their revenue in order to be able to feed into their budgets, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, it should be the pride of any county, Mr. Speaker, to be able to generate a revenue that caters for its expenditure insofar as it is possible. I know for some counties that may be difficult, but for those counties that are expedient in the manner in which they manage their resources, Mr. Speaker, their own source revenue should be able to cater for the needs of the expenditure in the county. And of course, generating is not enough. Good management of those resources, officials, Mr. Speaker, and public servants who are able to manage resources in a way that is faithful and with a lot of integrity, Mr. Speaker, then supports the generation of own source revenue and ensures that what is generated in a county can continue to be injected into the development of that county, Mr. Speaker. So I rise to support and congratulate the senators who have brought this statement, Mr. Speaker. And let me also mention about the student who died at Kimathi Primary School. I don't know whether it's a primary school or the secondary school. It is something that should never happen to any student who wakes up in the morning, Mr. Speaker, and goes to school, Mr. Speaker. And it is so unfortunate that a parent receives the news that their child is no more, having released that child to attend a school which is being managed diligently by competent officials, Mr. Speaker. I believe the Ministry of Education, together with the Ministry of Internal Security, Mr. Speaker, should be able to manage and tell Kenyans what happened to such a student and how we will manage issues in future to ensure that our schools are safe grounds for students and they are comfortable enough for any parent to be able to send their children to school without the anxiety of thinking they will receive bad news or receive issues, Mr. Speaker, that have caused a risk or exposed their students or their children to such a fatality or such risk. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kavendo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to support the statements of our senators. And I will start with the the statement for Senator Mwaruma about this demise of Samuel Mwate due to negligence of the doctors. Mr. Speaker, these ICUs have a lot of problems, not only of oxygen, but most of the hospitals don't even have generators. And so when the lights go off, when electricity goes off, many of the people in ICUs and many of the children in ICUs, incubators, die due to lack of oxygen and due to lack of the necessities that they should have while in the ICU. Mr. Speaker, whoever is going to check on the Committee for Health must also check not only in Taita Taveta County, but in all counties, because most of the hospitals don't have proper ICUs and don't have generators to sustain lives after electricity is gone. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this. And I also want to support Bonnie Halwale's statement about ONSO's revenue, because, Mr. Speaker, not only in Kakamega, but the committee must check also in all the counties, and especially Machakos, because I believe in Machakos we should be collecting much more ONSO's revenue than we are collecting. And I wish also the committee should also check that and ensure that the counties collect these monies and whoever are collecting this money are accountable and can be trustworthy, because that is where most of corruption is. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Senator Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support Senator Karen Nyamu's statement of the inquiry of deaths in schools. Mr. Speaker, I think this conversation needs to be moved to another level, and as much as you will refer it to the Committee on Education, I think it's actually time we come up with a bill so that we can focus on how to deal with deaths in schools as from a legal perspective, Mr. Speaker, because it's not only in Kimathi Primary, Mr. Speaker. We have so many that are unreported. Just the other day in Arap Moi Primary School, we had children who perished in a boat accident. They had gone for a trip. And those kind of incidences we need legislation. We need to find a way to ensure that when there are school trips, when there are engagements with the students where duty of care has been moved from the parents to an institution or to a third party, there has to be legislation around it. Mr. Speaker, we also have different types of death. I have spoken about the death of Jacqueline from Bomet County, the girl who committed suicide because of period shaming. That in itself is also an incident that it still falls under deaths in school or surrounding circumstances within the institution. So I think as much as this is being referred to the Committee of Education, perhaps we need to look into how we can legislate on that. Mr. Speaker, I also want to support the statement on citizenship status for foreign persons. Mr. Speaker, I know it is coming from the interests of Taita Taveta, where we have many foreigners, Tanzanians, who are married to locals and then are staying in Kenya and are therefore seeking for government services. But when we're looking at this matter, I think it should also be broadened, because we have the case of those genuinely looking to get their citizenship status so that they can access government services. But we have cases where we actually need to control foreigners who want to come in and then just get citizenship for whatever reason, for purposes of doing business and not wanting to pay the fees on business permits and things like that, or for purposes of acquiring property and things like that. And also, Mr. Speaker, on that particular matter, I just want to say this. When a Kenyan goes out to get married in a foreign land elsewhere, it is not as easy as we are trying to do it. They don't just get citizenship status anywhere. Go to Europe, Mr. Speaker. You are subjected to understand the culture, the history, the language. They have even created jobs in terms of teachers, because as a foreigner, you have to go sit for classes, learn the language. And once they really truly believe that indeed you have the best interest of that country at heart, is when you are granted some form of paperwork, residency or citizenship. So as much as we are also trying to make it easy for these foreigners to get government services, we should also ask ourselves, how are we preserving, for instance, our language? Mr. Speaker, this is probably why the Swahili language is actually just disappearing, because we have foreigners coming in. They don't want to learn the language. They don't want to learn about our history. They don't want to learn about our culture. This is why we have a lot of issues in terms of our culture and our beliefs and principles being corroded, because we are simply just handing out documents without really interrogating what the end game should be. So, Mr. Speaker, as that particular statement is being looked at, I am going to kindly ask the Senator to just peruse through a bill that I'm fronting in this House, Swahili. It's a language bill, Swahili for immigrants, because in that bill is also so many answers that we need to address in terms of the preservation of our culture and the preservation of our beliefs and our the history, for people to also understand and want to be Kenyan, so that we are not dishing out these documents just to the highest bidder. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mariam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I support a statement of revenue collection, on revenue collection. Mr. Speaker, in our country, 47 counties, most of owned revenue is leakage. There is leakage a lot because of no system. They have to improve on their collection through automated systems. Mr. Speaker, the other one is about road system. Roads, in fact, if I talk of northern Kenya, the road there is pathetic. In northern Kenya, we are just like second citizens in Kenya, because from Nairobi to Mandera, you travel almost a week. With this rainy season, is a month because of the road system. If you use air, it is expensive. One person go and back is almost 70,000. Mr. Speaker, I plead with the government to check the northern Kenya road system. The other one is education. We are behind on education. When implementation of this CBC, specifically public schools, the students are there, no teachers. Because of insecurities, some teachers, they said, Mandera is security, we cannot go back to our job. I thank TSC for the action they have taken for not allowing those teachers not to go back to their jobs. I urge the government make a priorities to the Northern Kenya education system and road system. Thank you.
Senator Oburu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support a statement sought by my brother, Honorable Senator Halwale, on the rentals which are being paid by the county by the county government of Kakamega, because, Mr. Speaker, the counties are supposed to be landlords, and when they spend so much money, public money, renting premises, when they should be the ones actually being paid rents, I think that is something which needs to be investigated and known for how long those leases are and when they will return back. Mr. Speaker, also the own source revenue. Own source revenue is are some of those revenues which are totally misused by the counties, and the accountability for these funds, Mr. Speaker, is very, very wanting, and they need to be streamlined, and we need to be very clear as a Senate how these own source revenues are collected, particularly those which are being collected from market centers, Mr. Speaker. They are not properly utilized, and there are people who become rich in the villages using that money. But it is not only people who become rich in the villages, but it is also the county governments themselves who misuse this own source. So the statement sought by Honorable Halwale is quite timely. Mr. Speaker, the land grabbing by Senator Chute. Land grabbing is a big disease in our country, Mr. Speaker. Land grabbing, you saw, Mr. Speaker, recently in Mavoko, where very, very magnificent buildings, where people have even gone to seek loans from banks, and their properties were going into the air. They were being blown and destroyed completely. Some of them had their life savings being destroyed. And this disease called grabiosis, or land grabbing in Kenya, must be dealt with once and for all. Because, Mr. Speaker, there are few very, very smart land grabbers who even go to the extent of acquiring title deeds for those grabbed lands, and the unsuspecting Kenyans buy them, and once they buy them, then later, when investigations are done and people go to court, those titles are nullified, and these Kenyans suffer very, their life savings, and sometimes even die out of shock from destruction of their properties. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to support those statements, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to comment on the statements made by colleagues. I would like to comment on the statement made by the Senator of Kakamega, Senator Boni Halwale, regarding revenue generation and usage. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important statement, and I wish we could, the committee concerned, could look at all the 47 counties, the amount of revenue they are generating, and how they are utilizing that revenue. Mr. Speaker, most of this revenue that is generated by county government is misused. In fact, in most cases, this money is spent at source, which is against the law. And I think the Committee for Finance should take their time to thoroughly investigate this issue of revenue. Because, Mr. Speaker, it beats logic that the old local authorities used to generate more money than our current government, county governments that we have. And yet the county governments are more capacitated, they are more resourced than the old local authorities that we used to have. So something is not right somewhere. And this House has a responsibility to find out where the problem is. I also wish to comment on the statement by Senator Omtata regarding the issue of debt waivers and bailout. Mr. Speaker, in the recent days, we have had the government bailing out some of the inefficient parastatals, especially in the sugar industry and many other sectors. I think we need to know the policy around this bailout and debt waivers so that we do not finance inefficiency. We do not finance corruption through debt waivers and bailout. There must be some very, very consistent policy on how this will be done. And if bailout are, if the failure of these institutions to perform efficiently and deliver services to Kenyans is a result of corruption, I think before we bail out this institution, the people who have been involved in misappropriating public money and resources must be accountable before the bailout is carried out. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to make comments on the statement by Senator Amida on the status of the ICT digital infrastructure in the country. Mr. Speaker, this is very important. We have heard in the recent past about the changes at Telecom. Telecom, Mr. Speaker, Telecom Kenya is a key institution as far as ICT infrastructure in this country is concerned. And when we see what is happening there, it doesn't give us confidence that indeed this country is going to go into the digital superhighway, because, Mr. Speaker, the past regime sold Kenya, Telecom Kenya to a foreign company, and the current regime has basically done the same. And this exposes the country very badly because if the key infrastructure of the government, the ICT infrastructure of the government rides on the telecom network. And if we have this kind of scenario...
Senator Sotsi, Senator Faki would wish to inform you.
Very well, Senator Faki can inform me.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to inform my colleague, Senator Ososi, that Telecom Kenya was previously sold to foreigners. And the former regime, the former government, bought it back from the foreigners who had acquired it. And then the current government now is trying to sell it to another foreign company. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The point I wanted to say...
What is your point of order, Senator Sharanke?
Standing order number 105, Mr. Speaker, gives our responses of facts. Is it in order for Senator Otsotsi and Senator Faki to mislead the House that the current government is trying to sell telecom, yet it is the previous government that was selling it to Ilios, and it is the current government that is trying to reverse? Because the information we have is that Kenyans were losing the money. Is it in order to mislead the country, Mr. Speaker, sir?
Yes, Senator Osotsi, could you proceed to substantiate that particular allegation, naming the companies involved? Senator Faki was informing Senator Osotsi, yes. And Senator Osotsi, proceed to just go by your earlier statement. You can elect to go by the information given or discard it if you find it not so useful. But if it's useful, you may proceed to act on it, but substantiate on the earlier statement.
Mr. Speaker, I mentioned that the former regime sold the Telecom Kenya to a foreign company. And Senator Cherigei is right to mention Helios as a company. That is a fact. But I also mentioned that the current government, after investigation, they brought back Telecom Kenya, but it's also a fact that there has been reports in the media that there is intention
Senator
to sell.
Osotsi, you know the rules of this House. You don't rely on media reports.
Mr. Speaker, that particular part of the current government selling the Telecom Kenya to a foreign company, because I don't have immediate information with me here, I wish to withdraw and continue with my deliberation. Mr. Speaker, the point I wanted to emphasize is that it is very risky for a country's ICT backbone infrastructure to be controlled by foreigners. That means that we are exposed. And I think when we talk about the digital infrastructure of this country, we cannot finish that conversation without talking about Telecom Kenya, which basically controls a large part of that infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, we are also investigating a matter in the ICT committee where I sit together with Senator Cherigei regarding the agreement between Telecom Kenya and American company, where the American company has decided to disconnect part of the infrastructure of Telecom Kenya. Mr. Speaker, because of contractual issues. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue, and I wish that the Committee of ICT where I sit will exhaust this matter by not just looking at the infrastructure on the face of it, but also going into deeper details about the arrangement between Telecom Kenya and this American company, the arrangement between Telecom Kenya and any other foreigners who would wish to invest in this. And as they do that, Mr. Speaker, there is also the matter of data storage. We also need to know how are we storing our data. Is there any foreign institutions involved in the matter of data storage? Because then, Mr. Speaker, our data will be exposed. Because in this era where we want even to have digital IDs, Mr. Speaker, we would like to ensure that the data that we keep is safely kept, the data that we keep is within the law, in line with the data protection laws, regulation, and principles. Because we cannot ask our people to provide their personal data and then we hand that data to foreigners. That would be a big mistake as a country. So the ICT committee, you need to take this matter seriously and maybe make it an inquiry into the status of digital technology in this country. Mr. Speaker, I submit.
Honorable Senators, at this juncture, allow me, for the convenience of the House, to rearrange the sequence of today's order paper and move to deal with Order 16 and 17, and thereafter we shall resume the normal flow as per the order paper. Clerk, kindly proceed to call that order.
Order number 16, the Care and Protection of Child Parents Bill, Senate Bills number 29 of 2023. Second reading.
Now, when debate was interrupted on Thursday, 19th of October 2023, the Honorable Senator Boni Halwale was on his feet and he had a balance of 7 minutes. So, Senator Boni, you can take it from there.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, before the House adjourned prematurely, it was because I was critiquing this bill because of its content. And people got unhappy, and they rudely stopped me. I begged them not to stop me again. Members, this is a very important bill because the population of Kenya is young. The number of young parents can only increase. The number of child parents runs the risk of also increasing. So such a law, we should make it watertight. We should critique it. Look, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the provision of starting from Article 21, not article, but clause 21, where the bill establishes care centers, then it goes further, Mr. Speaker, sir, and it establishes the terms and conditions and the legislative requirements for what should be taking place within the care centers. And finally, Mr. Speaker, it goes on and speaks to inspection and evaluation of safety in care centers. This should not be part of the bill. We should delete the entirety, 21, 22, 23, all the way. Reason? It is because, Mr. Speaker, whoever was drafting this bill forgot two primary issues. The first one is that today we have the Children's Act of 2022. These provisions that I've said they should be knocked out contravene the provisions of the Children's Act 2022. And secondly, the Republic of Kenya is a signatory to the United Nations Convention and protocols to the rights of children. These particular parts that I'm saying we delete are in contravention with that. Why? Mr. Speaker, because it has now been established socially and scientifically that the best place for a child to grow from, especially when they are under 5 years, is in the family unit or within their community. Anywhere else exposes the child to the problems which you know exist in the child care centers. That is where you find little children are being abused sexually. In the child care centers is where you find, Mr. Speaker, the problem of child trafficking. It is therefore also the policy of the Kenya Kwanza government that within the next 10 years, in compliance with the Children's Act 2022, all child care centers and orphanages will be closed down. Mr. Speaker, my next comment in critiquing this bill is if you go, Mr. Speaker, to clause 10. Clause 10 tells us in 10.3 that the principal of a school shall not inform a parent or guardian if the child is pregnant. Now, Mr. Speaker, if you stop the principal of the school from appealing to parents about the status of their child, where do you want the headmistress to take the pregnant child? If not to the parents, the best person to receive that child who is pregnant is not the principal of the school. It is the parents. Then the parents will know how to deal with the problem that they have. Now, when this bill proposes, Mr. Speaker, that pregnant children should remain in school, are you telling me that our teachers are trained to be, beyond teachers, they are also trained to be nurses, to provide antenatal care, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we must create laws that are in tandem with reality on the ground. In clause 14 and 15, this bill is proposing that if a teacher is found to be responsible for the pregnancy of a child in that school, the only thing that should happen to the teacher is that the teacher should be reported to the Teacher Service Commission. Really? We should legislate firmly that if a teacher is established to have impregnated a student, that teacher should A, immediately lose his job, and B, that teacher should be reported to the police, and C, that teacher should be charged for the offense of causing grievous bodily harm. A teacher who makes a child pregnant causes grievous harm to that child, and therefore, if found guilty, should be sentenced, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in this particular law, we are going further and saying in clause 18 that a parent or guardian of a child who falls pregnant shall not be discharged from their responsibility regarding the pregnant child and shall not collaborate with the institution on basic education in supporting and maintaining the health of the child. This clause is again supporting the earlier clause in 10 to attempt to keep a young pregnant woman, a young pregnant child in school, in whose care. I want to appeal to members of this House, as a professional in this area, that pregnancy is a high-risk condition. Pregnant mothers die. So when you leave her in the hands of the teacher, the other children have gone to class, and she's in the dormitory, with those remarks, I support and propose that I'll make amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Boni. In your last submission to that particular bill, I believe you definitely might need to also propose an amendment to the definition of grievous bodily harm, both in the Penal Code as well as the Sexual Offences Act, which of course does not have it, but it makes a lot of input to the act, as it were. Honorable members, I have Senator Oburu Oginga. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very important bill because, Mr. Speaker, it provides for about a girl child who is in school, and sometimes, Mr. Speaker, these young people get, these girls get pregnant without much ado, because sometimes they're just playing with their peers, and when they play with their peers and they are in that adolescent stage, you find that without any bad intentions, you find that the girl is pregnant.
What sort of play are you referring to, Senator Oburu? What sort of play are you referring to?
Well, I'm referring, Mr. Speaker, to general play of children. When children interact in school and they are of opposite sexes, Mr. Speaker, those plays could be many and varied, but they include some which can cause pregnancy. Mr. Speaker, this is what I mean. And Mr. Speaker, when these girls become pregnant, there is a big, big stigma. There's a big stigma because there are parents who love their girls so much, they believe in their girls so much, with so much love and emotions, that they don't expect to see their child. They don't even expect that their child could involve herself in such a game. And Mr. Speaker, because of this stigma, sometimes you find some girls even commit suicide. Because of fear of the parents, they fear the consequences, they fear. And sometimes, Mr. Speaker, it gives them the impression that their life has come to an abrupt end because of the stigma. Mr. Speaker, it becomes a very, very traumatizing situation.
What's your point of order, Senator Kinyua? Assume your seat, Senator Lingat, is a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I would hate to interrupt my senior. But for record, he is a senior member of our society, and I respect that's why he's choosing his words very well. But Mr. Speaker, he's talking about play, he's talking about a game, and in the same sense, then he talks about stigma, Mr. Speaker. I know he's trying to choose his words so that at least because of our culture, Mr. Speaker, he's very sensitive with his words, Mr. Speaker. But for purpose of record, Mr. Speaker, he's putting us in a very bad situation of talking of play and then this game, then there's stigma, Mr. Speaker. I want clarity, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kinyua, I'm very sure you have answered yourself that bit, especially by making reference to the seniority of Senator Oginga in terms of the choice of words. Those words meant exactly what he'd explained to when the chair asked him what sort of a play did he refer to. That I overrule. Proceed, Senator Oginga.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me. I know some of these young people, they enjoy interrupting me. I don't know whether it is because they also want me to know them. You know, it's good to to interact with them. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you. But, Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very serious situation. Mr. Speaker, I know there is a lady in my area who slept out of their home for one night. And because of the love the dad had for her, and when he was imagining what could have happened overnight to her girl sleeping out of the home, he even took a spear and threw at her. And the lady disappeared. And that is those old days, Mr. Speaker. And the lady disappeared and only came back after 35 years with the children who were almost that age, 35 years, when her father died. Because of the culture, our society would really not want their girls, particularly my community where I come from. We used to respect virginity. We used to expect that our girls would be married when they are virgin. But these days, that does not happen, but it is, I think, something which, is still happening in other ways in terms of love for our children, for our kids, and this protection which is being provided by the bill, where a girl who gets pregnant, a girl child who gets pregnant while in school, will, of course, not only sit her exams, but also continue with schooling with support from both national and the county governments, because it is, a girl and a man or a boy child, they should be enjoying equal rights. The boy who causes that damage to that girl goes scotch-free and continues with his education or her education unhindered, whereas the girl goes through stigma, through trauma, and through all that suffering. So the girl must be given all sorts of support by the society so that she can continue to get her education, to get her rights and be very useful in society. Because when you educate a girl, you educate the nation. When you educate a boy, sometimes these boys are just around you. They want your property. Some of them even kill their parents. But the girls, they are very supportive. Me, I love my girls. I love my girls. Girls support their parents. Girls are actually they are the happiness of the family, because they support the family, and they must be encouraged to study. Because, Mr. Speaker, our society did not encourage girls to get education. Our society thought that girls were just meant for dowry, so that the men get, the parents get money from the dowry to educate the boys. But things have changed. The society has changed. Money, not for getting dowry, but for actually getting or contributing to the development of the nation, equally or even better than the men sex, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm also therefore very, very happy that somebody has thought of going beyond the rules which are there, the regulations which are there, to give an opportunity for girls who are pregnant to continue with their studies, but to now provide them with, because there are families which are poor, there are families who can also afford to give support to their girls, to employ for them housemaids who will look after those children when they are going to school. Therefore, this bill gives an opportunity for counties and national government to support those families so that their girls can equally continue with education, just in the same manner that those whose girls get pregnant and are able to employ maids to take care of these children when their children have gone to school. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to speak much more on this one, but I hope that this bill will be passed by the House so that it goes to support those families whose girls become unfortunate, and then our society should also be educated to avoid stigma, and also parents to be educated to accept their girls who get into such situations, so that they don't stigmatize them and they don't make these girls feel useless and feel unwanted. With those few words, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Oburu. The 21st definition of housemaid, they say lately, is house manager. I thought that would be very important for your information, Senator Oburu. Senator Kajwang Moses.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the Care and Protection of Child Parents Bill 2023 that has been brought to the Senate by Senator Miraj Abdullahi Abdul Rahman. Mr. Speaker, when I listened to Senator Kalwale speak to this bill, initially I thought he was speaking to the bill that had been sponsored by Senator Beatrice Ogola, the super senator who also comes from Homa Bay County. Mr. Speaker, there is need for the clerks and the secretariat at the point of pre-publication scrutiny to ensure that related bills are merged, because I don't think that members have a problem in co-sponsoring bills. Where there are serious overlaps in bills, it makes sense for us to have one instrument and then have the two senators who have made the proposals co-sponsors. And I hope that we can still open a window if we find that there's a strong relationship between this bill and the one sponsored by Senator Beatrice Ogola. Nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, being the representative of the people of Homa Bay, which is one of the counties with the highest leading instances of teen pregnancy, this bill has come at the right time. And it's unfortunate that after more than 60 years of independence and 10 years of devolution, we have not thought it fit to come up with some statute and legislative framework to care for and to protect child parents. Mr. Speaker, child parents in this bill have been defined as persons who have not attained the age of 18 years and is a mother or a father of a child. Mr. Speaker, this has been a problem among the fisher folk in Homa Bay, among the fishing communities along Lake Victoria, among communities in Narok. If my memory is correct, Mr. Speaker, I think the leading counties when it came to teen pregnancies were Narok, Homa Bay, and several other counties where there's some nomadism. It could be nomadic pastoralism or nomadic fishing. Mr. Speaker, when a child becomes a parent, this situation of children having children, that should not be a death sentence, and that should not be the end of the road for them. When children have children, sometimes it is not even as a result of what we have defined in the other statutes, the Sexual Offences Act. Sometimes it is not a premeditated act of illegality. It is not that the children have sat down and they've decided they're going to break a law, but sometimes children just are being children. And in the process, there is conception. And if we don't have these clear provisions in law that assures them that to make mistake is human, and to make a mistake is not the end of life, our children will be going to back streets to procure abortion services. And if abortion is done in a manner that is not properly supervised, Mr. Speaker, we'll be killing our children. Because as parents, we sitting on a high pedestal, we think that we are perfect. We think that our children should not conceive before they are the age of 18. And yet, Mr. Speaker, if you are to do a proper and honest analysis, many of us, especially many members of parliament, whose parents are from the old generation, perhaps are children of children, because our mothers would be married early, and our fathers would also marry early. And so we should not condemn our children in this generation, that if they conceive and if they have a child, then they cannot be readmitted to school. And in as much as we can come up with laws, Mr. Speaker, this bill must also ensure that if a child who has conceived and has given birth is to be readmitted to a school, you don't have a situation where members of the PTA, Parents Teachers Association, or some groupings of parents start protesting that that child cannot come back to this school because they are going to serve as a bad example. In many cases, school principals and teachers have no problem readmitting a child who has given birth. In some cases, it is the parents who resist and say that if this girl comes back to school and my daughter does not have a child, we are practically telling my daughter that it's okay for her to have a child. And as such, this child who had a child should stay at home. Mr. Speaker, that is the height of selfishness. And that goes against the African spirit of socialism. And that goes against everything that we stand for as a community. Everyone has an opportunity to get access to education. Everyone has an opportunity and is entitled to the rights that are conferred, not just to children but adults in the Constitution of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I know there could be policy statements that have come from the Ministry of Education, but policy statements are at a lower level in the hierarchy as compared to legislative frameworks like this. And so we believe that the Senate, if we are going to pass this, we will make it very clear that if a child has a child, then that child can still come back and can have an access and can afford those opportunities that other people have. And the child of the child, this bill deals with that the child of the child must also be given access to childcare services. Those childcare services, we should not imagine them to be standalone facilities. Mr. Speaker, this bill must find a way of integrating those childcare services to the early childhood education and development centers, the ECDs, that have already been assigned to county governments in the 4th schedule of the Constitution. So let's not be talking of alternative structures, because when you say that, some governors find an opportunity for procurement and some opportunities for project management and the pilfering that goes along with new projects. Child care centers should be an integral part of early childhood development centers. Many counties have done fairly well in developing early childhood education centers. Mr. Speaker, very recently we went to Mombasa to look at the progress of some early childhood education centers, and we were impressed with the model that the county had adopted. That they are not just building some 4-walled rooms and then throwing children in them. They are building actual centers where children can find spaces to play, they can find spaces to be children, a proper place where the optics, where the painting, where the graphics, everything makes it attractive for children to come. And I think they have even gone ahead to provide meals so that these children can be attracted to those centers. The child care centers proposed here must be an integral part of the early childhood centers. Mr. Speaker, if in our Constitution we have made abortion illegal, except in the opinion of a trained professional, or except in cases where the life of the mother is in danger, in the opinion of a trained professional, if we criminalize children having children, we will push them into abortion and we'll push them into unsafe practices. If we close the doors to children who have had children not to go back to school, we will push them to early marriages. And therefore, we will condemn them perpetually. It was easier for our mothers to be married early because society was different. We're in a different world now. Science, research has it that mothers who have access to education, their children perform better in life as opposed to mothers who have not had access to education. And so, if you're going to build an equal society, Mr. Speaker, then this framework through which an expectant girl child or a child parent can actualize their right to basic education, this is one of the most important bills that the Senate can be dealing with. This bill makes reference to child parents to include child fathers. Mr. Speaker, that's a bit dangerous because a child father is an offender under the Sexual Offences Act. The minute you are the father to a child, you are an offender. And so I hope that this bill is not going to legitimize, and this bill is not going to rewrite the Sexual Offences Act. Though, Mr. Speaker, to be honest, the Sexual Offences Act must also be looked at so that certain definitions are brought up to date and are made relevant. I know it is one of the most, emotional acts, or one of the emotional pieces of law to talk about, because there's nothing worse. A sexual offense is as bad as a war crime. Mr. Speaker, there are few offenses within humanity that are as gross as a sexual offense. Things like rape, things like, the kind of things that happen in war situations that have an effect on breaching consent and inflicting pain and doing those kind of things that have been defined in the Sexual Offences Act. But when we get a child who's had a child with a child, why should we lock them up in prison, Mr. Speaker? Why? We need to rethink those provisions of the Sexual Offences Act. A child who's had a child with a child does not need to go to prison, does not need to go to a Boston institution, does not need to be forced to marry that child. Society must come up with means. Society must come up with procedures for integrating and developing those children. Mr. Speaker, we have seen in certain cases where rich, powerful men living in exclusive neighborhoods, with children who are fairly locked up and in a controlled environment. And Mr. Speaker, God forbid, you've got a gardener who perhaps is a child under 18 and engages in certain relationships with the daughter of the boss, Mr. Speaker. I think must have been, there's one Kenyan novelist who wrote a story with that kind of plot. If that matter gets to the police, Mr. Speaker, the parents of the rich girl will make sure that the poor gardener who made the rich man's daughter pregnant, that poor gardener rots in prison. And sometimes you ask yourself whether that is the best recourse for the mother, and that is the best recourse for the child. It could be a sense of vengeance for the parents, but is it the right decision, and is it the right path for the children who are engaged in that? And Mr. Speaker, I do not propose anything to rewrite the Sexual Offences Act, and this bill should not attempt to rewrite the Sexual Offences Act. But in recognition of parents, of child mothers, it veers into very, very dangerous territory. And so when we get to the final stages of this bill, we will need to be sure that this bill is not an encouragement of parenthood in childhood, but it deals with those unfortunate events where it has occurred. Let nobody say that Senate is promoting children having children. What we are saying is that once mistakes have been made, then everyone has got an opportunity, and everyone must be granted an opportunity to pick themselves up, dust themselves, and move on and catch up with those who have not made those mistakes. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support and I will encourage Senator Miraj to ensure that there's alignment with Senator Beatrice Ogola's bill and to ensure that we are not rewriting the Sexual Offences Bill. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Senator Kajwang. Senator Nderitu John Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika. Nasimama kuunga mkono mswada huu na kusema ya kwamba ndio ni mswada mzuri ya kwamba wasichana ambao wanapata mimba za mapema waweze kutunzwa na kulindwa, Bwana Spika. Lakini kwa usemi huo Bwana Spika, ni vizuri julikane ya kwamba mimi si wajibiki ama sishabiki ya kwamba kwa mimi kukubali ya kwamba wanapaswa kutunzwa na kulindwa, mimi ninawahimiza wapate mimba za mapema, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, ni vizuri julikane katika mila na desturi zetu, hasa sisi wa Afrika. Ukiangalia kuna msemo ya kwamba wanasema mtoto amevunjwa mguu, Bwana Spika. Unapata wazee wamekwenda katika ile familia na kujaribu mambo ya kidesturi, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, nakubaliana na mswada huu kwa sababu baada ya yule msichana kupata mimba za mapema, wengi wao unapata wanataka kurudi katika shule waweze kuendelea na masomo yao, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri mswada huu kwa sababu naona unaangazia hayo mambo na kusema ya kwamba wale wasichana wanapaswa kupewa fursa kurudi na kuendelea na masomo yao. Kwa sababu Mswahili anasema kosa si kosa, kosa ni kurudia kosa. Kwa sababu kama vile walivyoongea mbele yangu wamesema ya kwamba hawa ni wasichana wadogo, pengine wanafanya haya mambo ya kimapenzi bila kujua, Bwana Spika. Na wanajipata katika hii hali ya sintofahamu, Bwana Spika. Na ni vizuri wale ambao wako katika hizi sehemu za kuelimisha, hasa walimu wakuu na wale wanaohusika katika mambo ya kuendeleza masomo, wapatie fursa nyingine, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu anaweza kuwa alitenda lile jambo bila kujua, Bwana Spika, na atakuwa mtu wa manufaa pengine kwa sababu lilikuwa kosa la mara ya kwanza, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, ukiangalia hata desturi zetu unapata wazee sehemu zingine ukienda, hasa sehemu za niseme la kipi, Bwana Spika, unapata wasichana wanaozwa mapema, Bwana Spika, na kuna shirika ambazo zinaenda kuwaokoa wanafunzi wale, Bwana Spika, ama wale wasichana ambao wameozwa mapema. Bwana Spika, ikiwa mswada kama huu hautapita, tuendelee kuwashughulikia wale wasichana, Bwana Spika, itakuwa hatuwasaidii. Tumewaokoa, lakini hatuwezi kuwatunza kwa njia ambayo inafaa. Kwa hivyo mswada huu unaunga mkono kwa sababu unaambia serikali kuu imakinike na itilie mkazo kuweza kuangalia haya maneno. Na haisimami mswada huu, Bwana Spika, hausimami pale, unaendelea kusema ya kwamba katika gatuzi zetu, Bwana Spika, wanapaswa kuangalia katika zile sehemu ambazo hawa wanafunzi ama hawa wasichana ambao wamepata mimba za mapema, ama niwaite wazazi ambao wamepata mimba za mapema, Bwana Spika, sehemu ambazo wanapelekwa, Bwana Spika. Lakini Bwana Spika, nina shida kidogo na ukiangalia kipengee cha 11, Bwana Spika. Kipengee hiki, kipengee cha 11(2) kinasema ya kwamba msichana huyu akipatikana amepata wanashukia ako na mimba, Bwana Spika, hawapaswi kushurutishwa, Bwana Spika. Hapaswi kushurutishwa kwenda hospitali ama kukaguliwa, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, huyu ni mtoto ambaye hawezi kujifanyia uamuzi, Bwana Spika. Pengine tungesema ya kwamba ikiwa tayari wamemwambia mzazi wake, Bwana Spika, lakini wakuwa wameangalia vizuri, ni jukumu lao, Bwana Spika, kuwe na ule msukumo, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu kumwambia tu na tayari tumesema ya kwamba ni mtoto ambaye hawezi kufanya uamuzi, Bwana Spika, tutakuwa hata sisi tumefeli katika maelezo na maagizo yetu, Bwana Spika. Tunapaswa pawe na msukumo, Bwana Spika, hata akiwa ni mdogo, na najua wale ambao wanahusika kwa mambo ya human right watasema ya kwamba pana hapaswi, Bwana Spika, lakini tumesema ni mtoto, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo mzazi ama mtu yule ambaye ana uwezo wa kumwambia aende akaangaliwe, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu tena, Bwana Spika, mtoto kama huyu akipata shida wakati ako katika ile shule, unapata ya kwamba yule ambaye atachukuliwa hatua ni walimu wakuu ama wale ambao wanahusika, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo panapaswa kuwe na ule msukumo, Bwana Spika, ya kumwambia ni mpaka aende hospitalini, Bwana Spika, ndio aweze kupata maagizo ambayo yanapaswa kufuatiliwa, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, mswada huu ni mzuri tena kwa sababu, Bwana Spika, kaunti zetu ambazo hela nyingi tunapeleka pale katika kaunti zetu, Bwana Spika, hela hizi zitatumika kutengeneza hizi sehemu ambapo hawa wazazi ambao ni wachanga wataweza kuwa nanufaika kwa maelezo, Bwana Spika, ndio waweze kujua watajilinda kivipi, Bwana Spika. Wengine wao, Bwana Spika, si kwa sababu walijihusisha katika zile ndoa za mapema, Bwana Spika. Wengine wao wamenajisiwa, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo wataenda pale kupata maagizo ya kutosha, Bwana Spika, na waweze kuendelea na maisha yao ya usoni. Hata hivyo, Bwana Spika, watakuwa na ile kama ni yule amenajisiwa, Bwana Spika, unapata ana ule hajui atafanya namna gani, Bwana Spika. Lakini kwa maagizo na maelezo ambayo atapata katika zile sehemu ambazo zitakazotengwa katika kaunti zetu, Bwana Spika, itamwezesha kuendelea mbele, Bwana Spika. Sitaki kurudia yale ambao waliongea mbele yangu wamesema, Bwana Spika. Nataka kufikisha hapo na niseme asanti na mshukuru Miraji kwa mswada huu na naunga mkono, Bwana Spika.
Asante sana Senator Kinyua. Kidogo pale ukiendelea kwa mchango wako umechanganyisha lugha kinyume na kipengee 92 pale ulipoitaja human rights. Lugha sanifu naelezewa inasema haki za kibinadamu. So mara nyingine tafadhali fuatilia sheria za lugha za kutumia. Senator Okongo Mogeni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also make my contribution to this bill. Mr. Speaker, I first want to thank the sponsor of this bill, Senator Miraj Abdullahi, for thinking about our children, especially the ones who become children of children. I don't know that that's a correct English, children of children. And Mr. Speaker, any child who finds himself in this world deserves protection like a child who is born to adult parents, Mr. Speaker. So the biggest interest to look at, Mr. Speaker, here, the way they say, is the best interest of the child. I think the person that this bill is trying to protect is the child. And I want to join Senator Kajwang and Senator Kinywa in making the country and the nation to know that the Senate is not discussing this bill as a way of saying that we want to encourage children to become parents. That's really not the intention, Mr. Speaker. The African Charter on the Rights of the Children is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that any time you are discussing a legislation, the paramount thing you look at is the best interest of the child. So as a caring nation, Mr. Speaker, sir, we cannot abandon the welfare of a child simply because that child is a child of a child. That will be reckless and being a very uncaring society, Mr. Speaker. So it's good, Mr. Speaker, to bring it to the fore that there are many ways through which a child can become a parent, Mr. Speaker. And I want to even give you an example of the very many unfortunate incidences that has happened in my county of Nyamira in the last 2 weeks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, and I'm not trying to justify it, I don't even know what language to use, Mr. Speaker. Robbers attacked a family in Keroka, a village called Kerira, Mr. Speaker. And this family were all staying together. The principal of Nyansiongo High School, Ezekiel Okay, the wife is a nominated MCA in the County Assembly of Nyamira. She's called Zipora Matundura. Their brother is a CC in the county government of Nyamira called Kennedy Angwej. And you know, Madam Speaker, just to demonstrate how heartless Kenyans, or let me say thugs within Kenya can be, they attacked the family, they robbed them of phones, ATM cards, went to the ATM machine and withdrew money. But the most unfortunate incident, Mr. Speaker, is that they defiled 2 young children in the presence of those 3 prominent citizens of Nyamira. You can imagine. I mean, you don't know what will be the result of such an incident. It could be unfortunate that those children may end up becoming, how do you call it, children parents. You know, I mean, through such a very unfortunate incident, you can imagine, Mr. Speaker, such a heinous crime being committed in front of such prominent Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. Just yesterday, Mr. Speaker, at Kebirigo Market, a young boda guy called Abiud Matara, a hustler, after, doing his boda business during the day, was attacked, and killed by thugs in Nyamira. I've just sent a message, Mr. Speaker, to the CS Interior, and we are telling him that as leaders of Nyamira, we want him to respond to the insecurity that we are witnessing in Nyamira. But the relation to this bill, with what I'm telling you, is that this young man called Abiud Matara is a parent of some children somewhere. You may find that such children, Madam Speaker, if you don't have a society that is caring, you may have young children, maybe a daughter who is 8 years. Because of that unfortunate incident, somebody may engage in some acts of passion and become a parent, simply because you have lost your parent at a very early age. So, Mr. Speaker, when we speak to this bill, we are not simply saying that there are people engaging in pleasure who become parents at an early age. There are also other factors beyond our control, Mr. Speaker. And I hope if the CS Interior is watching this show, we need him in Nyamira like yesterday. Mr. Speaker. That's not normal. I don't think that has happened in Laikipia. I don't think you have seen those kind of insecurities in Bomet, Mr. Speaker. So we don't want to hear that every time the CS is out there addressing insecurity.
Senator Kinyua, what is your point of intervention?
This is fairly emotional. So your point of order, I hope, is in support of what's happening in Nyamira.
Give him the mic.
Mr. Speaker, I feel senior counsel because, Mr. Speaker, what he's saying is very true, and standing in support of him. But he's asked whether it happens in Laikipia. Mr. Speaker, it's true, it happens in Laikipia. These bandits, they attack. In fact, in one place called Kamwenje, these bandits attacked and then gang raped a Form 2 student, 7 of them. So, Mr. Speaker, I feel him and I understand.
Proceed, Senator Omogeni.
Thank you, Senator Kinyua, for empathizing and sympathizing with your brothers and sisters from Nyamira. That issue, Mr. Speaker, is really causing a lot of concern in Nyamira. I want to thank, I know I should not be saying issues on security in my contribution to this bill, but I'm relating this to factors that can contribute to very young girls becoming parents. If you lose your parents at a very early age, you don't have somebody to support you, it can lead to something else. Senator Kinyua, I want to thank at least the security operators at Nyamira, especially the DCC, Florence Obunga, and the DCIO, Paul Makonge, who this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, have given a directive, and I hope we'll get the backing of the CS Interior for the transfer of all police heads within Kebirigo, Mr. Speaker. Because we don't want our young children, our young boys who are not able to get into formal employment, who are running borders, Mr. Speaker, to be killed in the course of trying to fend for themselves, Mr. Speaker. So I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that if this bill is enacted and we have partnership within the national government and county government, it will be a good thing, Mr. Speaker. You know, you can't condemn a child, Mr. Speaker, to stop higher education simply because she has become a parent while she's a child. That's not right. These mistakes happen in life, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you, I know prominent Kenyans, very prominent Kenyans, whose parents became parents when they were children, at 17 years old. But because they were given a chance to go back to school, Mr. Speaker, they were able to finish school, educate those children, and they are now prominent citizens in society. So there has been this stereotype in where we come from, in our villages, that if you become a child mother of a child, then your future is doomed. That should not be the case, Mr. Speaker. Let us accept that these members of society who may find themselves in a situation of becoming parents at a very early age should be given a second chance. That's why I'm very happy with the spirit of this bill, Mr. Speaker. It is advocating that these children should be given a chance to go back to society. More importantly, it's also advocating that we must take care of the welfare of those children. Because as the parent goes back to school, Mr. Speaker, we must take care of the child who is remaining behind, Mr. Speaker. We must take into cognizance that that child who has become a parent does not have the means, Mr. Speaker. If you go to some countries, advanced countries like Australia, Mr. Speaker, in 1967, they amended their constitution to have social support programs, whereby people become parents and you are able to establish to the satisfaction of the state that you are not able to support your child. The government will give you $1,500 every month to support your child. Because these children, Mr. Speaker, they are the futures of tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. As we become adults, if war broke out today, Mr. Speaker, every Kenyan will be called upon to defend their country. So we must bring up the young generation cognizant that our days in this world, Mr. Speaker, are limited. After 70 years, the Bible says, you only live with pain and suffering. So we must ensure that we bring up the future generation, Mr. Speaker. I am impressed, Mr. Speaker, that this bill brings to prominence the role that our CEC play at the counties, Mr. Speaker, because they are the people who understand, the people who live in the county. We should not always, every time we want to solve a problem, Mr. Speaker, there has been this idea of saying we must run to the national government. Let us support devolution, Mr. Speaker. Let us give hope to our people that devolution came to change lives at the counties, and that devolution came so that we can resolve issues. I don't know whether we are doing, we are complying with the transitional clauses. I mean, with the Schedule 4 on assignment of duties between the national and county governments, because, Mr. Speaker, as you know, the only role that is assigned to county governments on education is on ECD. But I'm seeing there is a proposal on this bill that the county government should also be involved in ensuring that a child whose mother is a child is supported to go to school. Maybe we need to interrogate the bill further, if there are any amendments that can be made so that we make it constitutional compliant. We don't want such a good bill to die because it is unconstitutional. Very impressive, Mr. Speaker, with the idea of establishing care centers, Mr. Speaker. This happens. You know, if you travel to industrialized countries like US, child care centers are all over, Mr. Speaker. But this one is really dedicated to taking care of children whose mothers are children. Very, very progressive bill, Mr. Speaker. So I hope that we as senators will support the enactment of this bill, but we do it with caution. We are not encouraging our children. I know Senator Kinyo agrees with me. We are not encouraging our children to become parents at an early age. We must always advocate what we are told in the Bible, that love is patient. Wait for the right time. So, Speaker, we don't want boys to tempt our girls and tell them that the senator is passing a bill that if you get a child, the government will support. Because it can also have a negative impact in society, Mr. Speaker. The Sexual Offences Act must remain in force. We don't want adults, Mr. Speaker, to start having mothers who are underage, Mr. Speaker. So the law on having sex with a child should remain and be enforced. The only interest this bill should look at is the best interest of that child who has found himself or herself in circumstances where the mother is a child with no income and who also wants to pursue education. So with those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support and hope that CS Interior will take urgent and immediate action to address the issue of insecurity in the county of Nyamira, Mr. Speaker. We live in a very small county, Mr. Speaker. If this trend of killing our people in Nyamira continues, Mr. Speaker, we will be depleted, Mr. Speaker. So this is a serious matter, Mr. Speaker. As I said, I've had a discussion with the CS Interior on behalf of the leadership from the county of Nyamira. If you followed what happened today, there was a big security meeting convened by the DCC and the DCIO at the Kebirigo market. He must have received reports on the concerns from the citizens of the county of Nyamira, and I hope that sooner than later he will make a visit to the county of Nyamira so that he can address the issue of insecurity. We want to live in a country where we can peacefully go around doing our day-to-day activities without fear of being attacked by people who don't want others to do their businesses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Kongo Mogeni. I'm very sure that your concerns about security or insecurity in my neighboring county of Nyamira definitely will be addressed. Remember, the CS is a member of this house, or rather a previous senator, and therefore I'm sure he's able to follow up the proceedings, and we hope he will act accordingly. Senator Kinyua, what is your intervention?
Bwana Spika, ni kukupongeza tu wakati ulinikosoa kusema human right ukaniambia haki za kibinadamu. Bwana Spika, kwa moyo huo Bwana Spika, ningekuomba kwa sababu wewe nimeona ni mwerendi wa Kiswahili, tuwe tukiendeleza mazungumzo wakati umeketi kwa lugha ya Kiswahili Bwana Spika, kwa sababu Kiswahili kutukuzwe. Asante Bwana Spika.
Asante Senator Kinyua. Ile nitakuelezea ni kwamba uweze kuileta pia mabadiliko kwa sheria za kanuni za kuendeleza ili tuweze kuitukuza lugha ya Kiswahili. Thank you very much. Senator Tobiko Peris Pesi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support Senator Miraj's bill on the care of the child parents. Mr. Speaker, you know, as a parent and as a leader also, it's scary to imagine the situation of children getting children. But when that unfortunate situation happens and a human being has been brought into the world, then both children, actually they may even be 3 children, maybe the father of the child and the child involved are all children. So it may be a situation of dealing with around 3 children. It's a very scary situation, but then these are human beings, these are people whose lives were still in formation, who needs to care from parents and from community and from law enforcers and from the government of the day, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I support that these children need to be given a conducive environment, be it in schools and also at home, and maybe in situations where these children don't have parents, but they have now children, maybe there should also be shelters that where these kids can be taken care of, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do agree with you know, all the colleagues who have put caution that this does not mean we are encouraging you know, children to get babies. We are addressing a situation that may not be a normal occurrence, but that needs to be taken care of by law, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, these children will need care, and it is also good to say, to take this opportunity to say that in most situations, you find where a young man, a young boy, I mean, who is still underage, is the law is used, you know, like to punitively, very harshly on the boy, who also, just like the girl, was not, you know, in a position to make proper decisions, Mr. Speaker. And so I would say that, you know, boys should not be, the law should not be applied punitively on the boy child. Both the boy and the girl may need rehabilitation, may need to be taken back to school, and the child that has been brought forth is taken care by society, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we were going around during the campaign time, you know, I went to various parts of Kajiado County, and I realized there are parts of Kajiado County
that I saw little girls, because I'm imagining they must have been young girls. Because it cannot happen that in a whole crowd, so many women were small-bodied. For me, my conclusion was that these are young girls. And they were all having babies. They were either carrying babies on their backs or they are expectant. And it shocked me that a whole community looked like that. Babies carrying babies, you know? It shocked me, Mr. Speaker. It shocked me so much. And I'm like, how has community accommodated this? In some part of Kajiado, it looked like a normal occurrence. It looked like every young girl was carrying a baby. If not carrying, then she's expectant. Yet this is a community that we expect chiefs to be in that part of the country and should be enforcing the law and making sure that teenage pregnancies are discouraged. But to me, there was a part I really don't want to mention, but I think privately we can talk with the administration, because it shocked me, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it looked so normal to the members of that community. It looked like it's the order of the day, Mr. Speaker. And I wondered why we have never spoken about it. You know, Mr. Speaker, I was a constituency holder. So, for 10 years, Mr. Speaker. But in my constituency, Kajiado East, I had not seen such a situation. So it shocked me to know that in some parts of Kajiado, life is very, very different. And a lot of leaders are silent about this. And that is why I thought more than ever before, maybe Kajiado needs a mother as a leader, as a county, as a governor, because then mothers will bring out some of these issues. There are a lot of issues that, sorry to say, and I don't intend to be biased, but there are many issues that male leaders will sweep under the carpet, Mr. Speaker. Because I've never heard anybody speaking about it, but I saw a huge problem in Kajiado that needs to be addressed, Mr. Speaker. And so I think the Mirage law is well-meaning. I think it is well-timed, but caution must be put so that it doesn't look like this house is encouraging, teenage pregnancies. But once it occurs because of unfortunate situations, that the child did not intend, that the child was not in control, that maybe it was out of some molestation of some kind, then the situation still has a law that takes care of that kind of situation. And so I support Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tobiko. Senator Korir Joyce.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support the bill by Honorable Senator Miraj, and the bill on the care and protection of the child, Parent Bill 2023. And I want to agree with the sentiments of my colleague senators on the support of this bill, that this bill, Honorable Speaker, will cure a number of problems that our teenagers are facing, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the teenage pregnancy and motherhood rate in Kenya stands at 18%, which is really high, Honorable Speaker. And the reason why this is, Honorable Speaker, a number of teenagers, Honorable Speaker, lack the information about the sexual and reproductive health and rights, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would want to say that it will be prudent for us to really provide means and ways through the national government and the county government to make sure that we have programs that enlighten these teenagers on the dangers that are within the societies that they are coming from. Honorable Speaker, these are very vulnerable kids. They don't, the Honorable Buru talked about the games, or they play some games, which I don't term it as games, Honorable Speaker, because they have very serious consequences to an extent of even sometimes or affecting their future lives, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would want to request, or the bill is trying to address the issues of inadequacy, access to services tailored to young people, Honorable Speaker. And if the county government and the national government with all their hands and come up with these programs so that these youths can access, Honorable Speaker, we will be able to cure this menace, Honorable Speaker. The part 3 of the bill, Honorable Speaker, talks about the preventions. And they always say, Honorable Speaker, prevention is better than cure. Where part 3, Honorable Speaker, 1C, that is number 6, is that the programs that the Ministry of Education is putting for the vulnerable and children, Honorable Speaker, is to assist them, or to assist the two arms of government, that is the county and the national government, in weeding out the problems or the causes that are bringing these menace, Honorable Speaker. So even before we go to the issue of the child care, Honorable Speaker, it is the mandate of us as parents to make sure that every now and then we have an open communication with our children for them to really know the dangers that are caused by the early pregnancies, Honorable Speaker. It's not only the child, we also have the diseases, Honorable Speaker, which will, I'm talking about hindering their progress in life, Honorable Speaker. So I want to say the bill is a bill that is going to cure a number of issues that have been touched by the members, and I want to say that at least if this bill is going to be approved, Honorable Speaker, we will see a changed society, and really we will see these teenage pregnancies issues being addressed. Otherwise, I support, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Joyce, for your contribution. Honorable members, there being no other member interested in contributing to this particular bill, it ought to have been the time for the mover to reply, but unfortunately also Senator Miraj, who is the mover of this bill, is absent in the House. The reply shall therefore be deferred to the next sitting of this House, where Senator Miraj shall be called upon to reply to the bill, and thereafter the proceeding processes will continue. Clerk, let's move to the next order.
Order number 17, the Prevention of Livestock and Produce Theft Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2023, second reading, resumption of debate.
Senator Cherargei, you had just begun, you are moving the bill, and you have got 59 minutes remaining out of your time to move the particular bill. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've waited for this long, but I want to appreciate at least finally I have a chance to move the Prevention of Livestock and Produce Theft Bill, number 2023. So, Speaker, sir, the principle of this bill in terms of prevention of livestock and theft of produce, so Speaker, 2023 is to put mechanisms for preventing, combating, and eventually eradicating livestock and produce theft, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, as you are aware, this issue of cattle wrestling and banditry is rampant in the northern part of Kenya and also parts of Rift Valley, especially North Rift. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, it goes without saying that 12% of our GDP and being line for staggering 60% of rural population depends on livestock. And Mr. Speaker, from the onset, the issue of handling cattle or livestock theft and produce has been scattered in many of the laws, like Penal Code, Branding of Stock Act, the Stock and Produce Theft Act, which I propose that they should be repealed, especially Section 278 of Penal Code Act Cap 63 laws of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, what we are seeing, there is a continuous, the culture and tradition of many people where cattle rustling and banditry is found in North Rift and Northern Kenya used to be a cultural event as part of initiation to manhood, or to go and in courts steal the livestock and then use for dowry negotiations and payment. But this issue has mutated into a serious and dangerous criminal enterprise where deaths, theft of the livestock and many others have been the order of the day, especially in this part of the country. So, Speaker, my heart goes out to the many victims, many families who have lost their loved ones over a period of time because of this menace that continue to be a threat to national security and continues to rob families, Mr. Speaker, of their loved ones wherever they are. Mr. Speaker, yesterday or the other day, somebody was killed in Baringo near a primary school as they were herding their cattle by bandits who were later pursued by the security forces, Mr. Speaker. In the northern part of Kenya, North Rift to be specific, the guns have gone silent temporarily, but we hope and believe the solution to prevent of livestock theft, banditry, and cattle rustling is to have development in those areas, which most of this is because they are remote. We need to have security roads. We need to have establishment of schools. We need to have a proper way of shared resources like water, pasture, among other aspects, Mr. Speaker. So this bill is a bit complex, Mr. Speaker, because I've tried and address a lot of aspects and try to fight this criminal enterprise of cattle rustling and produce and livestock and produce theft. And I didn't, Mr. Speaker, for the intention of the House, I've told you 60% of GDP and 60% of rural depend on livestock, be it poultry, pigs. For example, in the country, as per the population, housing, and census of the other year, we have over 18 million cattle across the country. We have 18 million sheep. We have goats 28 million. We have camels 3 million. We have pigs 334,689. And of course, poultry, chicken, what you have is 31 million. This points to the 60% of GDP, Mr. Speaker. One of the life-changing, Mr. Speaker, is to branding of livestock, to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, when we brand the livestock, that identity cannot be stolen. And the bill has tried to really address that issue, Mr. Speaker. And I think it is about time that we agree as a country that let us put it in the law. We want to brand these animals. We want to ensure movement of animals or livestock are tracked. We want to ensure when they are slaughtered in Nairobi abattoirs, because the biggest threat, Mr. Speaker, has been the commercial financing of this cattle rustling and banditry, where animals are stolen and taken to Nairobi abattoirs or other major cities or major towns, Mr. Speaker, and unknowingly or knowingly, the meat that either we enjoyed at parliamentary cafeteria or even in big cities, 5-star hotels in these cities and towns in the country, could be unknowingly we are financing the ugly head of cattle rustling and banditry of livestock in the country. And I think it is high time that we track. Let us brand the animals. Let us ensure when you are moving animals from wherever you are taking them, maybe to Nairobi for slaughter, let that tracking of movement of livestock be done. Let the people who slaughter in slaughterhouses and abattoirs, Mr. Speaker, ensure they have records. And I'm proposing that before you slaughter an animal or livestock, you must maintain the records that are there, Mr. Speaker. And finally, we look at the offenses. We have tried to deal with offenses, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we are going to put an identifier. That is a permanent mark or a permanent representation on livestock. And we have proposed designation or combination of numbers, codes, or sign as may prescribe under the Act. So it's like when you have your own, safe where you are putting the money. And Mr. Speaker, you must put a combination of some password. So we want to create combination of unique numbers to animals. And one of the roles that we have given, Mr. Speaker, is the objects of this act, I have said, is to prevention and combating and eradication of livestock theft and to promote security and stability. Mr. Speaker, if you go to those areas, development is behind. There is no network, red network. There is issue of electricity, no water, no schools. Because the fact that there is still that insecurity, those areas, Mr. Speaker, continue to be a threat. I'm aware that the government is trying to fight issue of insecurity in those regions. Mr. Speaker, there is also aspect of registration and management of livestock by livestock owners. One of these ways is branding these animals. Let us brand them so that when we are bringing them all the way from Bomet in Longesa or somewhere in Chepalungu, Mr. Speaker, or Sigor, Mr. Speaker, where I'm told there are famous artists and musicians who are removing very interesting songs, Mr. Speaker, that I'm told there are 5 gentlemen and 1 queen pin. Mr. Speaker, in that song, it's a local song. So when you are moving from Sigor, for example, all the way to Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, you should ensure there is tracking. We need regulations, and Mr. Speaker, apart from fighting insecurity, it also assists in prevention of livestock diseases, like foot and mouth across the country, Mr. Speaker. We are also going to ensure there is tracking and recovery and tracing, Mr. Speaker, because if a cow moves from Kipteren or somewhere in Mosoriat or somewhere in Maralal or somewhere in Marsabit, if we come here at the Goreti corner where they normally, Mr. Speaker, slaughter, we can get the hide and skin and look at the number that XYZ is a cow that was moved from Eldoret or from Elgeyo Marakwet somewhere and then being taken. So it's a part of retrieving and tracing. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is also to bring collaboration. You know, Mr. Speaker, there is a thinking, Mr. Speaker, anti-intergovernmental relations. Many people have argued that agriculture is devolved, and we know that under 4th schedule. But there should be a collaboration and interrelations between those agenda, Mr. Speaker. And branding of livestock, we are giving the power of CS in charge of livestock, Mr. Speaker, to develop a standard policy on identification and movement of livestock as per clause number 4. It's also part of ensuring intergovernmental relations. It's also to establish, Mr. Speaker, this is very critical, the national database. After we have branded and registered all these livestock, Mr. Speaker, we create a national database such that when you queue XYZ on that platform, and we are happy the government has moved government services over 5,000 now, and the government is targeting 50,000 services online, you can say XYZ animal can be tracked maybe from Kajiado, Mr. Speaker, and many other areas. Mr. Speaker, it is also to ensure that there is collaboration with the security and other relevant agencies, establishing mechanisms for the discernment. I know this has been a concern especially in areas where Kenya Police Reservists or National Police Reservists has been a problem. Where in communities, when you go to West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Turkana, even in northern part of Kenya, Marsabit, Mandera, communities have been accusing each other, or the government at some point, even in Baringo and many other areas, have been accusing that they have been arming one side of the community against another. This will bring collaboration to ensure that we have discernment and confiscation of firearms and ammunition illegally held by livestock owners. This is very important because that is what the Ministry of Interior is trying to do at the moment. They are fighting over firearms and ammunition illegally held by livestock, Mr. Speaker. Also, the Ministry should ensure capacity building to the county governments on matters touching on identification and movement of livestock, Mr. Speaker. So these are highlights of the bill, Mr. Speaker, that tries to address many challenges, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think also in future, you know, when you watch the Senate of US, Mitch McConnell, Mr. Speaker, they normally, I don't know, we used to have a majority leader who used to read, Senator Samuel Pogisho. In the US Senate, they normally read their moving notes, but in Kenya, under our standing orders, we are never normally around. So I'm not reading, I'm just highlighting a few comments here and there. Mr. Speaker, when you look at clause 5, because I told you this is a very complex bill, because we are trying also to address something that is complex, that is thin line between the culture and criminality, Mr. Speaker. For example, a county register of livestock, the CEC, these are functions of the CEC, Mr. Speaker, under clause 5, is to establish the county register. When I come to Bomet and meet CEC in charge of agriculture, they should be able to tell us the registration of the livestock in that area. How many cows, how many poultry, how many others, and what have you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know whether Kiptindinya is an animal, but all the animals that are there, the livestock and many others, should be quantified. Also, the CEC will develop on how you can apply registration of brands. Mr. Speaker, you also need to design and formulate strategies and mechanisms for the prevention, combating, and eradicating livestock way. So, Mr. Speaker, you should also have strategies. Because, by the way, the biggest problem, Mr. Speaker, has been when you go to West Pokot and want to dictate, want to tell us how to fight issue of cattle rustling and banditry, you are in Nairobi. You are an official from Ministry of Interior. How will you understand the terrain in Elgeyo Marakwet, or in West Pokot, or in Turkana, or in Baringo, and many other areas? Of course, we have been having a challenge, Mr. Speaker. You know, the county security technical, has been, they don't allow county governments to sit in that county security team. But we are proposing that let them sit in terms of collaboration, so that it becomes it is like sensitizing the local community. Like alternative, and you know, I know this one might not be popular. We are proposing the CEC even to give livestock farmers alternative of livelihoods. I know Senator Topiko Paris was here. I don't know whether the Maasais and others would want to abandon the issue of livestock rearing to go and maybe take care of maybe other livelihood. So the question is to change the cultural aspect. Then, Mr. Speaker, we also, when we need to do GIS, tracking system, so we need the county to acquire that system, so that when there is movement of animals, nowadays, Mr. Speaker, we use GPS. If I want to know, Mr. Speaker, where you are, I will just, Mr. Speaker, just put a tracker. I can know you are seated somewhere in the Senate because of the GPS that we have in phones. So we want to put trackers to the animals and ensure that we have in place. Mr. Speaker, I'm proposing in clause 6 that we have county assemblies. Mr. Speaker, I can see you are consulting on issues of Bomet. I hope all is well. Mr. Speaker, the county legislation and county assemblies, Mr. Speaker, we are giving them power. We are giving them power to now county assemblies to go and domesticate in Bomet County Assembly, in West Pokot County Assembly, in Nairobi County Assembly, because the issue of cattle rustling does not restrict itself to northern Kenya. And this, I have told you, Mr. Speaker, we are unknowingly financing the cattle rustling in this country because of the meat that we eat in Nairobi. No one can tell us with certainty that the meat we eat is because of livestock that we are aware where they are coming from, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another clause that I want to bring to the attention of the House, when you apply for registration and branding, you must be given within 30 days. So if I apply to CEC of Agriculture, for example, of my animals somewhere in Kajiado, you should give me or register a brand if registration has been there, Mr. Speaker. So there must be application. Clause 7 talks about certificate of registration of a brand as provided for under section 5.3 of the county executive shall issue to the applicant a certificate of registration in form or prescribed. So any certificate, Mr. Speaker, of registration, you must have it. Where the holder of a certificate claims that the certificate has been lost or destroyed, the holder of a certificate may make an application in accordance with subsection 4 to county executive. So, Speaker, clause 8, when you sell, for example, you sell a committee to transfer right to a brand to another person, there is also a process. Because, Mr. Speaker, somebody might say, if I have issued a farmer with a registration certificate somewhere, and how do I get it back? Maybe you go and buy animals in Kajiado, in Kibiko area, and you want to transfer to Nairobi. Maybe you are an owner of abattoir or slaughterhouses, Mr. Speaker. You have the right to transfer that brand to another person. And the CEC in charge of agriculture at county government should approve the receipt of that application, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, certificate of transfer. So we shall be doing normal transfer the way you buy land, and then you do certificate of transfer because of sale of agreement, Mr. Speaker. So I think so that Kenyans understand, we are not saying when you have branded your animals, you have certificate of registration. When I buy those livestock, you have power to do certificate of transfer. And this is the work of CEC because, Mr. Speaker, I didn't want us to lose the sight of ensuring that we have the CEC. So also the CEC has power to cancel the same. And another unique, Mr. Speaker, in this bill is as an animal gets to 6 months, they must be branded. So I think of registered plan, and that part says to be branded with a registered plan with the livestock owner is the proprietor. And if that animal is beyond 6 months, let's assume this law comes into place, Mr. Speaker, then 3 months of the commencement of this act, to be branded with a registered brand in which the livestock owner is the proprietor. Mr. Speaker, when you are branding, of course, it should be conspicuous, it should be present, should be present, and use permanent identification devices. Mr. Speaker, you see, we shoot. I don't know, there is a way they, especially they put, there was a time, a bird, there was a day, a bird was being shot somewhere in, it was found in Nandi. And we were told that bird came all the way from Netherlands. And that permanent identification device, Mr. Speaker, could be used as a way. Movement of livestock. Number, Mr. Speaker, movement of livestock. And that becomes, that one I wanted to explain there, Mr. Speaker, on what, Mr. Speaker, this is a prescriptive, Mr. Speaker, so that there was a prescriptive way of ensuring removal shall be in triplicate and clearly indicate. So, Mr. Speaker, it is basic. You know, this is the first time this bill comes before the Parliament of the House. It must have certain procedures, like date of the livestock, purpose for the removal, the number and type of livestock to be moved, particulars, and premises from which are being moved from. Mr. Speaker, in upshot, we are trying to kill, in quotes, and strangle the financials of cattle rustling and banditry, livestock, among others, Mr. Speaker. Even if you come today and buy a cow from my place, Mr. Speaker, or even a chicken, I must take the particulars of purchaser. It is as simple as that, Mr. Ngusia. So, if the document of evidencing of such of sale agreement, Mr. Speaker, and shall not issue a removal permit. Mr. Speaker, and when you are now doing, you must retain the removal permit. You know, there is what we call removal permit. Removal permit. So when I come, Mr. Speaker, and buy from you a cow, it must be in triplicate. So as the seller, I will retain the removal permit original. I give you a copy, then the other copy, 3 months. This is serious stuff. 3 months before removal. So that, Mr. Speaker, you know, I thought truly, how do we finish this issue of cattle rustling and banditry and livestock theft? We must be very innovative, Mr. Speaker. Every owner of an abattoir shall keep, and this is why now this is very serious. Because, Mr. Speaker, what the Ministry of Interior and other Kenyans have been telling us, that they must be kept books and records at every livestock slaughter and carcass. This is very crucial. You must keep books, Mr. Speaker, for 3 months. So if I have a slaughter in Tiebunya, trading center in Bomet, or in Kachek, or in somewhere in Kapsowar, when you walk to my abattoir, I should be able to give you the list of the cows or livestock I've slaughtered for the last 3 months. And that is the point. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I really want to say that of every and carcass before leaving the abattoir. Because most of the time, Mr. Speaker, we are being accused of facilitating. Because these people steal animals. They drive all the way to Nairobi without proper procedure. Then it becomes very hard, Mr. Speaker. It becomes, Mr. Speaker, it becomes very hard to track them into place where they are. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, and this I know slaughter, I don't know whether there is an organization of butchers. I don't know whether they are organization of butchers. Whether they are organization of butchers, they might find this inconveniencing. But how do we fight, Mr. Speaker? If we cannot, how do we fight if we cannot ensure that we have a process of keeping in place, Mr. Speaker? How do we ensure? I know this one, the abattoirs and the owners of butcheries. Mr. Speaker, I used to sell meat before. I used to be a butcher. But butcher of livestock, I didn't butcher anything else apart from what is legally allowed, Mr. Speaker. And I was able to be able, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that people might think we are stifling the business. We are not, Mr. Speaker. We are not stifling any business, Mr. Speaker. So the Association of Butchers and Butcheries should not find, Mr. Speaker, that we are stifling their business. Their business, it becomes very hard, Mr. Speaker. So I think, Mr. Speaker, it becomes easy, and Mr. Speaker, that is the point I really want to emphasize. I think the butcheries, Mr. Speaker, another option is that I would request the books of every carcass leaving abattoir to be kept in honor of abattoir shall indicate for a period of 3 months, Mr. Speaker. It becomes very hard from the date of receipt of livestock for slaughter or carcass leaves the abattoir. Number 15, the county executive shall designate the county executive shall designate the county executive shall designate such persons to be inspectors for each ward in the respective county for the purpose of enforcement of this act. Mr. Speaker, we will ensure, Mr. Speaker, and you must tell us if you are an owner of butchery in Nyamira, somewhere in Nyasiongo, you must tell me, Mr. Speaker,
What's your point of order, Senator Joyce?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I know that the Speaker doesn't have eyes, but Honorable Speaker, I can see that there is no quorum in the room.
Clerk, could you ascertain the quorum in the House? Sergeant at Arms, could you please ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes?